Chapter 1083. The senior brothers looked at each other and smiled. They felt that it was interesting to test the newcomer. They seemed to like this kind of thing and wanted to see how Onion solved it. It should be said that they were like judges to see if the newcomer could become their future junior brother. At least the way he looked at Onion didn't have the slightest contempt, nor did he look down on him. Just this point alone made Onion feel quite comfortable and did not reject him. They seemed to be quite united and had a good relationship with each other, unlike the other forces which were basically incompatible. Only those with equal status or similar talents could have a topic to talk about. As for those with a bigger gap, they could not be bothered. This kind of atmosphere was quite bad and was not the environment that Onion liked. It was different here. The atmosphere felt quite good. I remember that kid from last time. He burned it to nothing. His fire control is a little too weak, right? It's normal to burn it to nothing. Some people will just have flames, but their fire control is a mess. I remember there was someone with good fire control, but the result was like a stick. It's a little different from a thin needle. I can't even burn it into a thin needle, let alone drill a hole in it. You can't do it, but it doesn't mean that others can't. Senior sister Flaming Lotus can do it. Not to mention a thin needle. She can even burn a hair out. They were discussing while Onion was preparing for the test. Onion did not think much. He raised his hand and displayed the white bonfire. The moment this demonic fire appeared, everyone's eyes lit up. The white bonfire was a very good demonic fire, and they nodded. Then, Onion quickly threw the flame on the ice. With a whoosh, the violent flame wrapped around the ice. Almost instantly, the ice was completely covered. Everyone was stunned. So simple and violent. Didn't he burn the ice directly? After a while, the flame quickly disappeared, leaving behind a thin needle. It was similar to a normal needle. In just the blink of an eye, the ice block was burned into needles. His ability to control fire could be said to be terrifying. When everyone saw this, they were immediately dumbfounded. It turned out that they had encountered an expert in playing with fire. To be able to easily burn out fine needles, it was obvious that he was very experienced. Damn it, I'm not seeing things right. This flame control is even better than Senior Sister Fiery Lotus. Bullshit. Senior Sister Huolian can make fine threads that are even thinner than a needle. Alright, you're much stronger than me anyway. They were all shocked by Onion's move. He had thought that Onion would fail, but who would have thought that he would succeed in an instant? I almost forgot to punch a hole in it. Onion smiled and flicked his finger. A small flame flew out and easily pierced through the head of the needle, completely forming a needle. Then, he extended his hand and pushed the thin needle back into Elder Dongyun's hand. After Elder Eastcloud received it, he picked it up and looked at it. He nodded in satisfaction. Looks like this level isn't too difficult for you. It can be said that your ability to control fire is very shocking. Looks like you practiced a lot of techniques for controlling fire. They were all very satisfied with this and exclaimed in admiration at Onion's performance. Are all the newcomers so strong now? One of them reached out and slapped his face. It was obvious that he was not as good as Onion, which was why he did that. That's right. It seems that we're old. After training for so long, we're not as good as a newcomer. How embarrassing. They all shook their heads, feeling like they had been dealt a heavy blow. Their ability to control fire was not even half as good as Onion's, but they could still join. From this, it could be seen that it was necessary to test one's ability to control fire, but it did not need to be at such a terrifying level. Fire control could be developed slowly in the future, so it was not the most important test here. Onion immediately noticed this. Since it was the first round, it probably would not be very strict. You're really good, kid. I was just saying it casually, and you really completed it. Senior brother Yulong took the needle and sized it up. He clicked his tongue and said, "Then, according to our agreement, I'll give you a high-grade reincarnation level treasure later. You can choose any one of them." This senior brother Yulong was very forthright. He did not go back on his word. However, this was not a big problem for him. With his ability, he could already forge high-grade reincarnation level treasures. There was some difficulty, but he could still forge them. Little brother, Your ability to control fire is comparable to mine. Senior sister Fire Lotus squinted her eyes and smiled sweetly. When we join the God Creation Palace, can you spar with me for a while? Let's talk about it after I join. Tianyin wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. These people were really enthusiastic. Ahem, you passed the first round perfectly. It was indeed beyond my expectations. Your foundation is very good. It was a little beyond our expectations. Your ability is not bad. Elder Dong Yun revealed a smile. There are so many disciples here for the assessment. You're considered to be at the forefront. Then, I'll leave the second round to Yulong to set the question. Senior brother Yulong seemed to have waited for a long time. He ran out excitedly and said, I'll set the second round. The content is still fire control. Fire control again? Tianyun was stunned. He had already tried to control fire before, and now he was testing this again. Of course, it's not just simple fire control. Later on, you can forge any weapon or anything else. We'll keep disturbing you. If you can successfully complete this weapon, we'll consider it a pass. How about that? Senior brother Yulong laughed loudly. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. They could see the mischief in each other's eyes. Tianyin immediately knew what these guys were here for. They were here to help disturb him, right? They were really going to do it in a group and disturb him from the side. However, it was unprecedented for them to participate in the assessment as a group. It could be said that they were united as one to help the junior brothers who joined later. That's not a problem. Let's give it a try. Tianyin nodded. I wanted to see how far these people could go. It's good that there's no problem. We'll still give you 3 chances. We'll keep disturbing you. I hope you can maintain your fire control ability and don't be disturbed by us. Senior brother Yulong laughed loudly. The others looked at each other and smiled, as if they were laughing about something. I remember something. When we disturbed that guy previously, he directly exploded his cauldron. I almost forgot if you didn't mention it. That was because the disturbance was too much, resulting in the explosion. Chapter 1084. Tianyun didn't say much. He quickly took out a pile of materials and prepared to refine a low-grade reincarnation-grade weapon. He wouldn't choose something with a high difficulty. He just chose something with a normal difficulty. God knows how these guys would interfere with him. Then, he quickly threw out a pile of materials and used the white flame bonfire to melt the materials. He didn't need a furnace to start refining. He didn't need a furnace to refine a weapon. This wasn't difficult for him. This move made them sigh. They felt that Tianyin was really bold. He actually didn't use a furnace, as expected of a first-rate fire control ability. He didn't even need a furnace. If it was me, I wouldn't dare to do this. That's right. Although it's only a low-grade reincarnation-grade weapon, it's still quite difficult without a furnace. They all recognized Tianyun's ability. To dare to do this, he must have excellent fire control ability. They didn't dare to do this, but there were others who dared to do it. When Tianyun was melting, a piece of iron was suddenly thrown into the flames. It quickly mixed with the other materials. Add it in for me. Don't throw it out. Senior Marshal Brother Yulong laughed loudly and added a little seasoning for him. Tianyun was startled. Then, he quickly controlled the white flame bonfire to melt the mixed materials. Then, he removed the impurities and quickly superimposed it with the already melted materials. With the addition of this material, the entire weapon's material changed. A change in the ratio could easily lead to failure. However, Tianyun's control was quite perfect. He directly removed the impurities, leaving behind the purest thing. At the same time, he threw in a brand new material. This material and the material that Senior Apprentice Brother High Dragon threw and formed a perfect combination. They complemented each other and didn't affect anything. But compared to before, this weapon would have more effects. When the Senior Apprentice brothers and sisters saw this scene, they all praised him. To be so decisive, it proved that he was quite experienced. If Tianyun didn't add in the new material, this weapon would still have problems. After all, it was impossible to eliminate the negative effects of this material just by relying on the ability to control fire. For example, if he were to throw in an ice stone, he would need to use another material that could withstand the ice stone to successfully refine the weapon. Etienne quickly found the right materials and controlled them perfectly. There was no doubt that he had a good foundation. Interesting. Then I'll add this. Then someone threw a piece of or into the melted liquid. Etienne was quick to react. He quickly wrapped it up, melted it, and threw out new materials to make the perfect mix. I'll throw one too. All of them seemed to think that the matter wasn't too serious and kept throwing out new materials. This was what they meant by interference. They didn't mean that they were going to beat up Etienne while he was forging. This was no longer a disturbance, but a deliberate attempt to chase people out. The content of their assessment was very rough, but at the same time, it was also a very important foundation. What was being tested now was his ability to adapt and his ability to control fire. Now, all of them were basically taking turns to throw out ores, special materials, and even spiritual medicine. All of them were dissolved by him one by one and integrated into the pile of materials. He didn't know what he would be able to forge in the end, but he only needed to pay attention to one thing, and that was that he couldn't fail or explode. Even if he forged a brick in the end, it would at least be a brick that could smash someone to death and not a pile of powder. If the forging failed normally, it would directly explode and turn into a pile of waste materials that couldn't be used at all. In the end, all the spectators threw in a material. Etienne didn't reject any of them, and he couldn't reject any of them. He solved the integration problem perfectly every time, and so far, there hadn't been any major problems. The biggest problem was that he didn't know what kind of weapon he could forge from the big ball of liquid. It looked so mixed and probably had all kinds of attributes. This kind of weapon was relatively weak. No one could have all the attributes. Being too comprehensive meant being mediocre. Of course, it wasn't a requirement for the weapon to be strong, but for the weapon to be usable, and that was enough. This newbie is really amazing. He's the strongest newbie I've seen so far. He threw out so many materials and nothing happened to him. That's right. If it were me, I would have failed long ago. He's completely fine. It's watertight. Damn it. Why do I feel more inferior as the test goes on? They couldn't help but scratch their heads. They originally wanted to see how long Etienne could last. Who knew that he would persevere all the way and nothing happened to him? Condense! Etienne shouted and quickly formed hand seals. The ball of liquid flew up quickly, and under his hands, it was constantly kneaded in the air. Then, he fell heavily from the ground. At the same time, he condensed his energy into a giant hammer and kept smashing it down. He kept smashing the ball of liquid. As there were too many materials, he kept making the materials wider. Then, the shape of an incomparably huge sword gradually appeared in everyone's sight. With so many materials, he could only forge a relatively large weapon, and a huge sword was a good choice. Under his constant hammering, a huge sword was quickly formed. It was flashing all kinds of colors and looked very strange. This meant that he had fused too many materials. If it were anyone else, it would be a waste of materials. But to be able to fuse them and not explode, it already proved that Etienne's ability was very amazing. Dang! With a crisp sound, Etienne kept the void hammer, and a colorful huge sword appeared in front of everyone. Its grade was not low, and it was almost a mid-grade reincarnation level weapon. There were a lot of mixed materials, but the quality was not low. The materials they threw out were not very precious, but they were not bad either. Usually, they wouldn't carry any garbage with them, so the materials they threw out were not bad. Now that they could forge a weapon that was close to a mid-grade reincarnation level weapon, it was definitely shocking. It's done? Etienne threw the huge sword to Senior Brother Yulong. After Senior Brother High Dragon received it, he reached out to touch it and said in amazement, "You're really amazing. You managed to forge it perfectly just like that. Just based on your reaction speed alone, your standard can be considered above average among us." Chapter 1085. They could not help but praise the giant sword that Etienne had forged. They were not stingy with their compliments. They were more and more satisfied with Etienne. Even Elder Dongyan was looking at him with admiration. Without a doubt, he was qualified to join the God Creation Palace after passing these 2 rounds. "I wonder if I can pass this round, Senior Brother Yulong?" Etienne asked with a smile. If you can't pass this round, then no one in the world can pass it. Be it your control or your ability to adapt, they are both superb. Senior brother Yulong smiled. We are very satisfied with this. You passed the second round easily and perfectly. Although you performed perfectly in the first 2 rounds, there is still the third round. If you can't pass the third round, it will be more difficult for you to be evaluated. As he spoke, senior brother Yulong looked at senior sister Fire Lotus. Senior sister Fire Lotus was the one who came up with the final test. Tianyin squinted his eyes. He thought that they would hire him without passing the third round. Who knew there was a third round? From their tone, it seemed like the third round was the most important one. Senior sister Fire Lotus walked out and looked at him with a blushing face. She smiled. Little junior brother, you're really capable. I'm more and more attracted to you. She even walked over and drew circles on his chest with her fingertip. It looked rather seductive. Tianyin moved back a little and maintained a distance. He smiled. Senior sister, you're too tempting. I'm afraid I can't control myself. If you can't control yourself, then don't. Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled. It was really like a beautiful fire lotus blooming. It was red in 4 colors and looked rather beautiful. Cough, cough. Tell me the content of the third round, Tianyin said. You really don't know how to flirt. Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled. The content of the third round is very simple. Bring this weapon and follow me to the fiery mystic realm to kill demonic beasts to obtain the flame scale. Once you obtain the flame scale, you will pass the round perfectly. Flame scale? Tianyin still had some impression of this item. It was one of the materials used to create high-grade reincarnation-level treasures and was relatively precious. It was unique to the flame Qilin. Generally speaking, there was no need to kill the fire Qilin. All one had to do was subdue it and take it away. If he killed it, he wouldn't be able to obtain it in the future. Therefore, they would choose to catch it and peel off a little flame scale from time to time. After resting for a period of time, it would grow back. This was quite cruel, but some places would give it good food and drink and nurture it as their companion. This way, he didn't even need to subdue it to obtain the flame scales, which would normally fall off. That's right. We have a fiery arcane realm here. There are many materials inside. There's also a flame Qilin among them. We'll work together to subdue it and then pluck out its flaming scales, senior sister Huolian said. Sure, no problem. Tianyin nodded and said. It wasn't difficult to subdue the flame Qilin. To him, he could suppress it with one punch and knock it out. Then it would be easy to get the scales. Then, let's go to the fiery arcane realm now. Senior sister Huolian waved at Tianyin and led him forward. Senior brothers, you're not going? Tianyin looked at them and asked curiously. Why are we going to the fiery arcane realm? We'll wait here for you guys to come back. Senior brother Yulong smiled and said, We have high hopes for you. This time, you must get it back successfully. Tianyin was a little puzzled. He thought that they would come over together to watch. Who knew that they would stay here obediently? This made him feel strange. However, after thinking about it carefully, they were going to get the flaming scales. If a group of people came over, they would scare the flame Qilin. After they left, everyone looked at each other and smiled. Then, they disappeared on the spot, going somewhere unknown. Under senior sister Huolian's lead, they came to the teleportation entrance of the fiery arcane realm. After explaining to the guard that it was a test, the guard immediately let them pass. They easily arrived at the fiery arcane realm through the teleportation formation. As soon as they arrived, Tianyin felt that the temperature was even hotter than above. Looking around, there were still piles of flaming stones. It was no different from the ones outside. The only difference was that there were volcanoes at the side. There was also a lot of lava rolling on the side, forming rivers of lava. With their cultivation, it would not be a problem for them to fall for a short period of time. It would not cause them much harm. Tianyin glanced to the side. Just as he was about to say something, a figure jumped into his arms. Little junior brother, are we not going to do anything? Senior sister Huolian jumped into his arms. Her beautiful eyes were full of temptation. She was not here to get the flaming scales. She was here to seduce him and do some private things. Luckily, there was no one around. Otherwise, they would have been misunderstood. Senior Sister Huolian, what are you doing? Tianyun grabbed her shoulder and pushed her forward. He said in a deep voice, we are here to get the flaming scales. Please behave yourself. Senior Sister Huolian was tempting, but he was not interested. He had sure Shuiyun in his heart. That was enough. Senior Sister Huolian waved her hand and said in a bored tone, how boring. I think you are quite capable and much stronger than the others. Can I have some fun? Senior Sister Huolian, you are putting me in a difficult position, Tianyun said in a deep voice. I know. It's a mission. You are so boring. It's just a flaming scale. I have it here. Senior Sister Huolian took out a flaming scale and waved it in front of him. She smiled and said, how about it? I have the flaming scale now. You just need to play with me for a while and let me order you around. This flaming scale is yours. There is no need to look for the fire Qilin. It is so hard to find. You might as well take it back. Moreover, I am the supervisor now. No one will think that the flaming scale is on us. You can just say that you took it. Her face was full of temptation. She still had the mission item in her hand. He did not need to look for the fire Qilin. He only needed to accompany her. Not interested. I'll get the flaming scale myself. Tianyun did not even bother to look at her. He turned around and walked forward. Senior Sister Huolian smile deepened as she watched him leave. She followed him and said, all right, you are so inflexible. But I like inflexible people like you. I will go with you to find the flaming scale. I will not trick you this time. Chapter 1086. With Tianyun's warning, Senior Sister Fire Lotus finally became more obedient. She didn't make any more moves and just followed obediently by the side. Tianyun carefully explored around. There are a lot of demon beasts here. There are also a lot of forging materials. It could be said to be a treasure trove of materials. It should be inside the God Creation Palace and not open to the public. Otherwise, this place would have been full of cultivators. Even though it was slightly dangerous, it was still within an acceptable range. Especially when one wanted good stuff and was unwilling to take risks, it was obviously very unreasonable. As they went deeper, the demon beasts became fewer and fewer. There weren't even any demon beasts around. At the same time, the quality of the materials around them was getting higher and higher, and their numbers were increasing. It wasn't that no one was collecting them, but that this was the territory of a powerful demon beast. We might be in the Flame Qilin's territory. Tianyun turned his head and looked to the side. He could already smell danger. The Flame Qilin was definitely not weak. It was at least above the level of the Lord of Heaven, and it was very powerful. With the Qilin's bloodline, how could it be weak? The Qilin's bloodline was ranked in the top 10. The power that it could unleash was definitely above most of the same level. And that's right. We are already in the Flame Qilin's territory. Senior Sister Fire Lotus's expression turned serious and wasn't as exaggerated as before. Just as she finished her sentence, an angry roar came from the flame forest in front of them. It was like a roar from the underground abyss, and it was frightening. It's warning us not to get close, Senior Sister Fire Lotus said in a low voice. If that's the case, let's hurry over. We'll pass if we take the scales. Tianyun nodded, ignored the warning, and ran forward. Senior Sister Fire Lotus followed up with a long whip in her hand. It was very suitable for her character, and it was hot. Roar! Just then, a huge figure jumped out of the flame forest. The first thing that Tianyun felt was the extreme heat, as though it could burn a person. What appeared in front of them was the huge Flame Qilin, shrouded in flames. His entire body was covered in a thick layer of flaming scales, each of which contained an astonishing amount of flame energy. Even those at the level of the Lord of Heaven would not dare to casually touch the flaming scales for fear of being burned. Of course, Tianyun wasn't worried about this. They didn't need to worry about the flaming scales burning them. Now, they only needed to worry about how to dig out the flaming scales from its body. Flame Qilin, super powerful divine beast, level 5 Lord of Heaven cultivation, possesses super demonic fire power, can burn everything. At the same time, the flaming scales on his body could withstand all damage. The super strong defense was enough to block a fatal attack. Fifth stage Lord of Heaven. This flame Qilin was truly powerful. This was a divine beast. Seeing this divine beast, Tianyun wanted to tame it for his own use. With such a powerful divine beast as a companion, how could he not feel at ease? Roars! The flame Qilin roared at them again and issued a stern warning, signaling them to stay away. Go! Senior Sister Fire Lotus rushed towards the flame Qilin without hesitation and whipped the long whip in her hand towards the flame Qilin's body. Pa! The whip heavily hit the flame Qilin's body. Such a heavy whip only left a shallow mark on the flame Qilin's body, and the flame Qilin quickly recovered as if nothing had happened. Roar! Senior Sister Fire Lotus's attack thoroughly enraged the flame Qilin. It roared at her, and a huge fireball whizzed towards her. As if the end of the world had come, the huge fireball fell from the sky and enveloped the entire land. Senior Sister Fire Lotus's complexion changed, and she quickly dodged to the side, but her speed was still a bit too slow, and the fireball had already exploded towards her. At this moment, a figure blocked in front of her, and a cold light flickered. Xiao! The huge fireball was split into two halves by a spear. Tianyun grabbed Senior Sister Fire Lotus and fled to the side. Senior Sister Fire Lotus was stunned. She didn't expect that Tianyun would come so quickly and even penetrate this terrible fireball with a spear. You stay here, I will deal with it. Tianyun motioned her to stay on the side. He alone was enough to deal with this flame Qilin. Wait! Senior Sister Fire Lotus hurriedly stopped him, but Tianyun had already rushed forward alone and was ready to penetrate this flame Qilin. Seeing Tianyun rushing over, the flame Qilin was stunned and turned to look at Senior Sister Fire Lotus with a confused look in its big eyes, as if it was asking for some instructions. Senior Sister Fire Lotus pointed at Tianyun and nodded at the same time. Roar! The flame Qilin suddenly went crazy and aimed at Tianyun and fiercely spat out several balls of flames. The power of each ball was stronger than the previous one and directly blocked all of his escape routes. Break! Tianyun's eyes narrowed, and he displayed violent heaven Ju, and a violent power was released along with the spear. It directly penetrated this huge fireball and easily pierced it into two halves. The next moment, he rushed out of this exploding fireball, and in one fell swoop, he was in front of the flame Qilin and swung his spear at its body. Under this fierce swing, a bang sound was heard, and the flame Qilin was smashed down from the sky like a fool. Boom! The flame Qilin heavily hit the ground, and a big pit was formed. Tianyun didn't stop and quickly chased after the flame Qilin and was ready to launch another fierce attack on the flame Qilin. Wait a minute! At this time, Senior Sister Fire Lotus hurriedly blocked in front of the flame Qilin, and with a big hand in front of it, she said, Little junior brother, don't attack it. What's wrong? Aren't we going to take the flame scale? A faint smile appeared on Tianyun's face, as if he had already seen through some clues. This is our test, and you don't play according to the rules. How can you be so strong? Senior Sister Fire Lotus was very helpless. What do you mean by not playing according to the rules? Tianyun pretended to be suddenly enlightened and said, Could it be that, in fact, the flame Qilin is actually your companion, and you just found it to test me? Yes, it is to test you. I have to say, the content of the last test seems to have failed. At this time, a group of people flew over, and these people were the senior brothers and senior sisters from before and Elder Dong Yun. They were hiding at the side, and now that they knew that they had been exposed, they could only show themselves. Chapter 1087. The fire Qilin crawled up from the ground, not injured at all. Actually, Tianyun didn't use much strength at all. The spearhead wasn't directly aimed at its body, but smashed down with the spear shaft. Thus, there wasn't much damage to speak of, not even a scratch. At most, it would hurt a little when it smashed down. To the fire Qilin, this was just a scratch, not a big problem. This was all done on purpose by Tianyun. He was just playing along with Senior Sister Fire Lotus's performance. From the moment Senior Sister Fire Lotus entered, he knew that everything was an act. She probably fell for it. Senior Sister Fire Lotus was extremely talented, and he knew her true personality. she definitely wouldn't be so wanton. Everything was a trap, and he just fell for it. Now, it was proven that his guess was right. It was all just a test. From the start, Senior Sister Fire Lotus had set a trap for him. She showed interest in him in all aspects, and even tempted him in other aspects. Some couldn't control themselves, and were tempted as soon as they entered. Then, everything would be lost. He was very sure that if he fell for it, no matter how perfect his performance was, he wouldn't be chosen as a disciple. Little junior brother, aren't you too strong? You messed up our plan. It wasn't easy for us to think of a trap, but you ruined it. Senior Brother High Dragon was a little frustrated as he walked over, with a helpless expression. It's fine. At least you resisted the temptation at the start. You didn't choose to hand in the Fire Lotus's scale. You even chose to protect her later. This is already in line with our selection criteria. There shouldn't be a need for the rest of the test. Elder East Cloud walked out and said with a smile, however, this was indeed unexpected. It was quite a strong attack, but it was still broken like that. It messed up the plan, Elder East Cloud. What was the original plan? Yun smiled faintly. Fire Lotus was injured by the attack, and she brought you to escape. Hide in a cave and reveal all sorts of precious treasures at the same time. Let's see if you would be tempted and run with them. Getting killed by the Fire Cheelant's attack isn't your fault. Some people will take the treasures and run. They won't prioritize saving people and instead destroy the corpses. Elder East Cloud shook his head, and a fierce look flashed across his eyes. Clearly, he had encountered such a situation before. Yun felt helpless. Wasn't this a trap? It was equivalent to luring him to commit a crime. If it was anyone else who saw someone injured and on the verge of death, they would have easily taken the treasures and left. This was a test of human nature. Should he insist on saving them and leave? Even if he was on the verge of death, he had to save him first. Instead of secretly taking a few treasures, destroying the corpses, or even abandoning the people. Little junior brother, I know what you're thinking. In the eyes of the outside world, our God Creation Palace is a God Creation Palace that deliberately makes things difficult for newcomers. We just want a sincere companion who can trust others with his back, instead of scheming against each other and being jealous of each other. We are a family. We help and support each other. Senior Brother High Dragon's expression was solemn. The others also nodded. There was no discrimination or mockery. Instead, they huddled together. They could only help and support each other. This was how a true senior brother should be, instead of scheming against each other and stabbing each other in the dark. This was the attitude that Onion admired the most. He wanted this kind of feeling. There was no discrimination, and being able to help each other was the best choice. It was not like some sects, where from the moment they joined, they had to scheme against each other. If one surpassed the other by just a little, the other would think of ways to belittle them or stab them in the dark. This kind of sect would not last long. There were too many scheming against each other. How could they develop? Therefore, he would not casually join any faction. Even if he did, he would at most stay for a period of time. It was impossible to stay for long. Now, the God Creation Palace was very suitable for him. It could even be said that they were very united. From the rumors, it was indeed difficult for newcomers. The tests were very difficult, but ability was only one part of the test. The real test was to test one's heart. It didn't require a particularly heaven-defying ability, just a good foundation. After all, no matter how extraordinary a fellow disciple was, if he was always high up and did not care about anyone, then what was the use of having him? Although many factions would rather have a strong disciple than a bunch of ordinary ones, for this place, what they needed was a sincere senior brother. This way, when they went out to fight, they could trust their backs. At this time, Senior Sister Fiery Lotus had already appeased the Flame Cheelan. They looked very close, and it could even be said that they had a master-servant relationship. After a simple exchange, Senior Sister Fiery Lotus walked over and asked, "Little junior brother, did you see through it long ago?" "Not really." Yun had a serious expression. In fact, he had seen through it long ago. If he could not even see through these tricks, he would be too easily fooled. However, he did not say it out loud to comfort them. If he had known from the beginning, he did not know what kind of blow they would have received. "Is that so?" Senior Sister Fiery Lotus nodded and chose to believe him. All right, your senior sister Fiery Lotus is not so frivolous. She is usually very strict. If you casually tease her, be careful of getting burned. Senior brother High Dragon laughed and said, it's just that she has to sacrifice herself in every test. Otherwise, how can we choose a sincere junior brother to join us? Senior sister Fiery Lotus rolled her eyes at him and reached out to caress the flame Cheelin. She smiled faintly and said, little junior brother, you have passed our test perfectly this time. We welcome you to join our God's creation palace. That's right, you passed perfectly. You passed all 3 tests with ease. It can be said that you passed with the best results in history. All of them cheered for Etinion's addition. Elder East Cloud, aren't you going to treat us? Senior brother High Dragon looked at Elder East Cloud and smiled. Sure, let's go. Elder East Cloud reached out to pat on Etinion's shoulder and smiled. Let's go. To celebrate the newcomer joining the God's creation palace, I will treat all of you to Drunken Stars for a drink. Drunken Stars for a drink? Elder East Cloud is really generous. I have never seen you treat us in the past. Cough, cough, that was in the past. Now, Tianyun is rather capable and has the best results in history. Can we not celebrate? Elder East Cloud's face was beaming. How could he not be happy to recruit an all-round genius? If he was happy, he would definitely be willing to pay a huge price for a trip to Drunken Stars. The rest could not refute this point. Among them, Senior Brother High Dragon reached out and placed his hand on Tianyun's shoulder. He smiled and said, it is all thanks to Junior Brother Tianyun that we have the fortune to eat this time. Let's go celebrate together. Let's go celebrate together. Chapter 1088. Under Elder Dong Yun's lead, they flew directly to Drunken Fanxing. Drunken Fanxing was not very far from the God Creation Palace. Through the teleportation formation, they only needed to teleport to 2 places to reach Drunken Fanxing. As the name suggested, Drunken Fanxing was actually a good place full of restaurants. There was good wine everywhere, and there was even delicious food to enjoy. Basically, many disciples could come here to relax after completing their missions, or when they were worried. When they arrived, Tianyun was indeed shocked by Drunken Fanxing's situation. Drunken Fanxing was filled with the rich fragrance of wine. Even he wondered if he had entered a wine pot. Otherwise, how could it be so fragrant and sweet? Although he did not enter a wine pot, it was almost the same as entering a wine pot. It was not the wine that brought such a rich fragrance, but the Drunken Fanxing trees here. The tree trunks seemed to be filled with wine. Otherwise, why would the fragrance be constantly drifting out? In reality, it was not that there was wine in the Drunken Fanxing trees, but that there was a lot of wine buried under the roots of the Drunken Fanxing trees. Every restaurant was surrounded by Drunken Fanxing trees, so they could not casually dig down. Otherwise, they would definitely be broken by the boss here. Through the Drunken Fanxing trees, they could not only add a rich and sweet taste to the wine, but they could also attract customers. We're here. Let's go to this Apricot Rain restaurant. Elder Dong Yun pointed. Apricot Rain restaurant. Elder Dong Yun, this is no longer as simple as bleeding, right? Senior Brother High Dragon and the others exclaimed. In the past, when we joined, you were not so generous. Isn't this a little too biased? Ahem, this is not biased. You guys have been working hard all this time. Can't I reward everyone a little? Elder Dong Yun said while waiting for them. Elder Dong Yun, is still the most generous. Then let's go and drink a few pots of wine. They all laughed and rushed to Apricot Rain restaurant. The atmosphere was very harmonious. Tianyun smiled at the side and followed them in. This atmosphere was really good. These were the fellow disciples of the same sect. Little junior brother, you really can't tell? Senior sister Fire Lotus couldn't help but ask. Looking at senior sister Huolien's doubtful gaze, Tianyun thought for a while before nodding and saying softly, I can see one thing. Senior sister Huolien's acting is a little bad. It's not natural enough. His voice was so soft that only the 2 of them could hear him. After hearing this, senior sister Huolien's beautiful eyes were filled with innocence. Is it really that bad? Can you tell so easily? This is a little exaggerated. It's fine for others, but I see more details. For example, it's clearly my mission for you to take the lead. Why did you take the lead? Moreover, you're even exchanging glances with the flame Qilin. It's hard not to know, Tianyun said helplessly. In the future, senior sister Huolian, you should make a detailed plan. That way, you can be foolproof. Senior sister Huolian suddenly laughed. Are you saying that I'm not natural enough in battle? You didn't find anything wrong with the others? That's right. There's just a little problem with the battle. Tianyun smiled. That's great. I'll improve in the future. Thank you for reminding me. I almost lost my confidence. Senior sister Huolian smiled happily and patted his shoulder. Speaking of which, you pushed me away and spoke so righteously. It's really attractive. If there's a chance, I'll introduce a sister to you. There's no need for that. Tianyun quickly waved his hand. There's no need for that. It's good to get to know each other. Senior sister Huolian smiled. Let's go drink. Seeing that she had relaxed, Tianyun shrugged. In fact, he had seen it from the beginning. However, seeing that senior sister Huolian was so conflicted, he must have said something. Otherwise, she would have gone crazy with her questions. The others saw that senior sister Huolian's mood suddenly became better. They did not know what was going on. Then, they entered the Apricot Rain restaurant. As soon as they entered, they saw that there were apricot trees everywhere. They looked yellow and beautiful. Some were even planted in the air. Dense apricots fell from the sky. It really looked like a rain of apricots. They did not expect that this kind of ordinary fruit would become a theme here. Elder Dong Yun is here. I haven't seen you in a long time. At this time, the owner walked over with a smile. It's been a long time. Give us a private room. Elder Dong Yun waved his hand. No problem. Please follow me. The owner led the way. As an elder, Elder Dong Yun naturally had to lead the way. The group followed. When they were about to enter the private room, they passed by a private room and heard a surprised voice. Isn't that Elder Dong Yun? Why are you so generous this time? Why did you invite so many people to drink? Everyone turned their heads to look, and what they saw was also an old man, slowly tasting the wine with the three of them. When he saw them, his eyes were filled with mockery, but more than that, there was disdain. Tianyun noticed that this person's clothes were similar to Elder Dong Yun's. This meant that he was also an elder. Of course, the Hall of Gods had more than one elder. However, the situation was very different. There were also internal conflicts. Every elder had a different management style. Elder Dong Yun liked to be united. The foundation could be a little weak, but the character had to be up to standard. So it's Elder Xiao Tian. I was wondering who it was. I'm generous and like to invite disciples from my side. Is there a problem? Elder Dong Yun laughed coldly. Not really. After all, the money is yours. How you waste it is your business. There's a human too. TSK. Elder Dong Yun is really regressing. You even accepted a human as a disciple. What does this look like? A garbage collection center? Elder Xiao Tian did not mince his words. He directly said that Elder Dong Yun specialized in collecting garbage. Everyone was instantly enraged. Among them, senior brother Yu Long stood out and smiled faintly. Elder Xiao Tian, speaking of which, your disciple seemed to have lost like a dog in front of us. He was barking as he walked. Did he really think he was a stray dog? Elder Xiao Tian's face darkened. He waved his hand, and a few chopsticks pierced towards senior brother Yu Long. They were quickly blocked by Elder Dong Yun. Elder Xiao Tian, what is the meaning of this? Elder Dong Yun said with a cold gaze. Nothing much. Elder Dong Yun, you should properly manage your disciples. When the elders are talking, the disciples should not interrupt. Don't you know this kind of etiquette? Elder Xiao Tian laughed coldly. Don't worry. We still know this kind of etiquette. However, the disciples I recruit are my own business. It has nothing to do with you. Elder Dong Yun said coldly. That's right. So what if we recruit any clans? They are all our juniors. Yes, they are all our juniors. Chapter 1089. It was rare for Tianyun to be so open. From the exchange of words with Elder Xiao Tian, he knew that this group of people was sincere. As long as they were determined, they would not change their minds. However, it was obvious that the two elders of the same deity palace had completely different ideas. One was biased towards recruiting geniuses, while the other focused on character. He originally thought that the deity palace would be a pure land, but it seemed like only Elder Dong Yun had such an idea. Elder Dong Yun had a different idea, and he was not as extreme as Elder Xiao Tian. There were more people like Elder Xiao Tian, and it was survival of the fittest. They had to choose the cream of the crop, not just the cream of the crop. Every single one of Elder East Cloud's disciples was outstanding, but they were still far from the level of super geniuses and elites. As for Elder Xiao Tian, he only recruited those with great potential and were considered elites. Elder Xiao Tian looked at them and smiled contemptuously. What a joke! In the entire deity palace, you have the fewest people. In the deity palace's trials, your rankings are quite low. This is because of Elder Dong Yun's good leadership, or else you wouldn't have gotten such good results. Elder Dong Yun's face turned green and white, and he did not look good. It was undeniable that Elder Xiao Tian was speaking the truth. Because he was too stubborn about character and unity, there were very few cultivators who passed. Some had amazing talent, but their character was not up to standard, so they were immediately eliminated. Those who were eliminated naturally joined other elders, which meant that their resources were continuously flowing in. On the other hand, Elder Dong Yun had not had a single newcomer join for several years, or even hundreds of years. It was not that no one came to take the trial, but that no one passed every time. The contents of the trial were too insane for them. Most people who had cultivated to this level were more selfish in their hearts. Suddenly becoming tolerant and associating with the weak was something they couldn't do. As time went by, the result was that no one joined in. When Tianyan came, no one lined up, and that was the case. The transportation portal that he headed for led to the area managed by Elder Dong Yun, so naturally, he met Elder Dong Yun. As for the other paths, they would have to face different elders. In the long run, Elder East Cloud's reputation grew more and more ferocious. In the end, no one came to sign up. This was the most awkward part. Elder Dong Yun's actions were clearly correct, but most cultivators did not want to be associated with weaklings. Or perhaps he didn't like this feeling of restraint. Everyone had their own thoughts. Tianyan liked this feeling. At least he wouldn't be stabbed. This is my matter. There is no need for Elder Xiao Tian to worry so much, Elder Dong Yun said in a deep voice. Of course, that's your business. However, if the other shrines were to compete, it wouldn't just be your business, but the entire shrine of God's business. When the time comes, I wonder what the palace master will think if your people drag us down. Elder Xiao Tian sneered. Every divine palace had a palace master, who was mainly the existence of the entire divine palace. Usually, they wouldn't appear and would be managed by many elders. Unless it was absolutely necessary, he wouldn't come out. I know what I'm doing. With that, Elder Dong Yun admitted that he was in the wrong and led the disciples to the private room in front. When they sat down, Senior Brother High Dragon was extremely displeased. Elder Dong Yun, that Elder Xiao Tian is too much. I'm not afraid of them at all. Even if it's a competition of geniuses, we have many here. Just Wu Lian and I alone are enough to suppress that bunch of idiots. All of them didn't even have the mood to drink anymore. They felt extremely sullen. No one liked to be slapped in the face, especially in front of their own elders. It was even more displeasing. So far, what he said is indeed the truth. If you want to retaliate against him, the best way is during the competition in the palace. All of you must fight hard for me. Elder Dong Yun said through gritted teeth. He wanted to make a move, but fighting between elders was also not allowed. Private fights were not allowed, especially two Sir God cultivation powerhouses. If they were to fight, drunken Fanching would explode. I will definitely fight hard and beat them to death. What I hate the most are those high and mighty fellows who look down on everyone. I admit that my talent is lacking, but don't I work hard? I believe that sooner or later, I'll be able to catch up to that bunch of fellows. That's right, talent can't compare. But can they look down on us like this? If they have the capabilities, then don't cultivate. A bunch of arrogant and conceited fellows. Each and every one of them started drinking furiously. The wine that they drank did not have any taste at all, like cows chewing on peonies. Each and every one of them was filled with righteous indignation. Etienne lightly drank the fine wine that was served, narrowing his eyes slightly, thinking about something. At this time, a wave of jubilant cheers came from downstairs and started to liven up, drawing their attention. As they looked down, a fighting arena was set up at no idea when. The apricot rain inn was very spacious. Setting up a fighting arena was not a big problem. Welcome, everyone. Today is the same as in the past. There's a special program. As long as you all send people over to fight, if they win, drinks are all waived. Of course, those who aren't coming down to fight can just place a bet like in the past. The Apricot Rain Inn's manager stood on the fighting arena and explained the situation here to the numerous guests. The Apricot Rain Inn was a little special. In this world where martial arts reigned supreme, the word fighting was naturally indispensable. The Apricot Rain Inn set up the fighting arena here as well as special activities. If they won, they would receive a reward of waiving drinks. If they didn't like it, they could place a bet. It could be considered a small prize. This kind of livening program was pleasing to the eyes. Actually, it was basically just placing a bet. The banker was naturally the Apricot Rain Inn. It was undoubtedly more profitable to earn extra money from this place. This is our agent. Who's interested in challenging him? The manager pointed to the agent he sent up. His cultivation was rather strong, having reached the 6th level of the Lord of Heaven. Those who come up to challenge cannot have a cultivation that is too high. The highest cannot be higher than the 1st level. Otherwise, I'll lose my life. As for those with low cultivation, there's no need to worry. With their gazes shifted, the crowd's mood eased a little. They all looked down at the situation below the stage. Very soon, there would be a customer challenging them. This was a place where drinks were waived. How could they not give it a try? The drinks here were rather expensive. If they could drink for free, why not? Chapter 1090. Before the battle began, everyone began to place their bets. Everyone's bets were different, but they all had their bets. Some bet on the guest, some on the fighter. It all depended on their preferences. Let's place our bets. Who do you choose? I choose the guest. Choose the guest? I feel that the agent is slightly stronger, so it's possible that he will win. I feel that the guest is stronger. He's even stronger than the fighter. Senior Brother High Dragon and the others were discussing who to bet on. They had some free time on their hands, and they were drinking now. How could they not liven things up? Not only them. Even Elder Dong Yun began to place his bets. He wanted to earn as much as he could since he had nothing to do here. Soon, they all placed their bets. The waiter collected the bets and settled them when they left. Junior brother, which one do you favor? Senior sister Fire Lotus asked. I favor the fighter. His cultivation is lower than the guest's, but his foundation is stable, especially his strength. He's definitely an existence that can crush his opponent. He doesn't need too much technique. He can defeat his opponent with just his strength. Etienne analyzed simply. There was actually more detailed information, but he didn't say it out loud. If he said it out loud, it would definitely scare Senior Sister Fire Lotus. He could even see the opponent's martial arts, overall strength, and weaknesses. Wouldn't that be scary? With the appraisal eye, there was nothing he couldn't see through. Does that Doge look very powerful? I feel that his aura is a bit weak. He doesn't seem to have enough explosive power. Someone interrupted. This is hiding his strength. If it's so easy to see through, why would the shopkeeper send someone up? He's not doing charity. He's here to win money and create a situation where he'll lose. Etienne smiled faintly. His further analysis made everyone feel that it made sense. However, some still felt that the guest would win. Let me think about it. I'll still bet on the fighter. Me too. Let's listen to little junior brother. It sounds quite reasonable. I'm firm on my choice. I feel that the guest will win. I've seen the guest win before. Sometimes I still make a mistake. Some people chose to believe in Etienne, while others chose not to. Actually, it was not a big deal. They all believed in their own judgment and felt that their guess would not be wrong. Then, I will bet 1,000 star stones on Doge. Etienne spent a lot of money. He didn't spend too much, but he was just playing around. There was no need to spend so much. Soon, everyone finished placing their bets. Then, they began to fight crazily. In the beginning, the warrior was suppressed for a short while. Then, the warrior suddenly exploded and waved his arms wildly, ruthlessly throwing his opponent away and winning the match. That agent really won. That's really godly. That power is really hidden and exploding at the critical moment, catching the opponent off guard and throwing him out. Those who had placed their bets with Etienne were all smiling, while those who had lost had bitter expressions on their faces. If there was no profit to be made, he would definitely have a bitter expression. Little junior brother, you've really guessed correctly. Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled and clapped her hands happily. She had listened to Etienne and placed her bet on the warrior. Etienne smiled knowingly. Unless the opponent admitted defeat on purpose, he would definitely not make a wrong judgment. Soon, it was the turn of the next batch. The warrior went down to rest. This time, Senior Sister Fire Lotus continued to ask, Little junior brother, what about this round? Who do you think will win? Is it the warrior? I think the warrior is quite powerful. His cultivation is higher than his opponent's, and his equipment is also better. Everyone looked at Etienne, waiting to see what he would say this time. Judging from his eyes, it was definitely the warrior who was powerful. As for the guest, he was just average. This time, the guest can win unless he admits defeat on purpose. Etienne smiled. His cultivation is lower than the warrior's, but his foundation is there. I can still feel the aura of flames from him. It is very likely that he has the power of demonic fire. When used together, there will be unexpected effects. Amazing! Little junior brother, you can see that the opponent has demonic fire? Senior sister Fire Lotus covered her mouth in surprise. This is just a feeling. Whether it is accurate or not, that is another matter. Etienne smiled. Okay, I will trust you this round. I will bet 5,000 star stones. Senior sister Fire Lotus bravely bet 5,000 star stones. This was not a lot, but it was definitely not a small amount. If they lost, it would be quite painful. Senior sister Fire Lotus, you are really bold. You trust little junior brothers so much? They all felt that it was very strange. It is okay. It sounds reasonable. Do you want to bet with me? Senior sister Fire Lotus smiled. Let's try. I will listen to little junior brother. I will pass. It seems that the warrior is a bit stronger. I will choose the warrior. Some of them continued to choose with Etienne, while others chose the warrior. Their choices were still different. Soon, the match started again. Etienne's judgment was not wrong at all. The guest used demonic fire and martial arts to easily defeat the opponent. There was no difficulty at all. It was a complete victory. God, it is true. Little junior brother, you are really amazing. Your foresight is really better than ours. I won less. If only I bet more. They were both happy and worried. They did not expect that Etienne's judgment would be correct twice in a row. It was really shocking. If it was a blind guess, there would be a 50-50 chance. However, Etienne's analysis was very accurate. He knew what trump card the opponent could use. That was another matter. Little junior brother, I've earned again. It's all thanks to you that I can earn so much. Senior sister Huolien smiled until her eyes turned into slits. This is all your choice. It has nothing to do with me. I was just saying casually. Don't blame me if you lose. Etienne smiled. Then it was the third match. All of them looked at Etienne, hoping that he could give an accurate answer. 2 consecutive wins. How could they not look forward to it? From what I see, the guest has a higher chance. Buy the guest. Buy. If you don't buy, you are not a disciple of the Temple of Gods. That's right. I will buy the guest. I will bet 5,000 star stones. Before Etienne finished speaking, the people behind him had already placed their bets in a frenzy. Other than a few who did not buy, most of them chose to buy. Chapter 1091. Up until now, no one had ever heard of the shopkeeper deliberately arranging for them to lose, so no one was worried about this. If they were discovered, the apricot rain house would be scolded to death. That wasn't a problem. The most important thing was whether he could make an accurate judgment. Only by pointing out the good points could he have a higher chance of winning. If Tianyun could point out the opponent's good points, they believed him even more. That prompted them to place their bets. They believed in his choice and treated him as a godly diviner. Soon, the third round was decided. Tianyun's choice won. The results shocked them again. They didn't believe it before, but now they did. If the first and second times were coincidences, what about the third time? The third time was no longer a coincidence. The key was that he had pointed out the opponent's good points. It couldn't be a coincidence. That's great. We won again. If I had known, I would have placed a bigger bet. I would have earned more. Yeah, but it's okay. We can continue to bet. As long as Little Junior says it, we will place a bigger bet. It's a pity that the upper limit is 10,000 star stones. Otherwise, I would have bet more. They didn't just have a few star stones. Some had hundreds of thousands of star stones. But the upper limit was 10,000. If it was too high, the apricot rain house wouldn't be able to afford it. Although they were confident in the people they sent, it didn't mean they were absolutely confident. They were in the heavenly spring divine territory. There were so many geniuses. If a heaven-defying genius appeared and someone else bet tens of millions of star stones, the apricot rain house would lose everything. The upper limit of 10,000 star stones was a good number. It wasn't high or low. To put it bluntly, it was just a simple entertainment. They couldn't lose too much. Of course, if too many people placed bets on the agent, the manager would make the agent lose. Otherwise, he would lose a lot of money. They just had to pretend. This time, the two are evenly matched. Their abilities are about the same. I can't estimate it. Tianyun spread his hands helplessly. Their abilities were about the same. If they fought, they could only rely on their experience to win. Tianyun could tell. Their abilities were about the same. The appraisal, I couldn't tell. Evenly matched. All of them looked disappointed, which made things even more awkward. If they were evenly matched, even an elder wouldn't be able to tell. One could see his experience and various other aspects of ability, but who could see his combat experience? Soon after, they could only place a bet and treat it as a casual bet. Soon, the result was out again. It was Doge's victory. The two of them were indeed evenly matched, and Doge had almost lost. It just so happened to verify Tianyun's words. The two of them were evenly matched. It was hard to say. What about this round? Who will win? They looked at Tianyun expectantly, wanting to hear what Tianyun had to say. I think the agent will win. The guest cultivation is still one level higher, but this agent is stronger. It looked very ordinary, but it was a speed martial art. Under the rule of speed, he will be able to win this round. Tianyun quickly deduced. Well said. Speed is the only thing that can't be defeated. Then I'll bet on him. 10,000 star stones. Me too. I'll bet 10,000 star stones. They all fought to place their bets, which really scared Tianyun. You guys are making things very difficult for me. If I lose, won't I have to take the blame? Tianyun felt very helpless. After all, this wasn't a small amount. It's okay. If we really lose, we won't blame you. Anyway, you let us earn quite a lot before. At most, we'll just lose it back. That's right. We chose it ourselves. Who can say for sure? They all smiled. Even if they really lost, it could only be said that it was a little more unexpected. I said that the guest will win. At this moment, Elder Xiao Tian walked out, his gaze sharp. I didn't expect Elder Dong Yun to have such a blind disciple. This round is clearly the guest's win. You don't even know who this guest is? He is a great genius of the Spear Palace. His spear art is like a shadow. Who can dodge his ultimate spear art? What kind of speed can dodge his spear art? His three disciples also walked out. The wooden tokens in their hands represented that the person they bet on was the guest. A genius of the Spear Palace? I remember now. He is the Shadow Lord of Heaven of the Spear Palace. His spear art is indeed impressive. One of them suddenly remembered the identity of this person, causing everyone's expression to change. From this, it could be seen that this person was quite famous. On the other hand, that Doge wasn't so famous. It could even be said that he was unknown. Who cares who he is? I believe in Little Junior Brother's judgment. That Doja will win. That's right. Doja will win. What spear palace genius? Can't the person invited by the shopkeeper be a genius? That's right. Doja will definitely win. What blind eyes? I think you are the real blind one. None of them changed their expressions. Instead, they all supported Yi Tianyun's judgment. When facing an enemy, they had to stand on the same side. Elder Xiao Tian, how we choose is our business, right? Elder Dong Yun said indifferently. Of course it's your business. It's just that you have placed all your hopes in the hands of a human. It's really funny, and you have even thrown 10,000 star stones at each of them, Elder Xiao Tian said indifferently. Just watch. That Shadow Lord of Heaven is the true winner. Elder Xiao Tian had such confidence because he naturally knew the background of this Shadow Lord of Heaven. Otherwise, how could he have such confidence? Yi Tianyun didn't say anything. He couldn't be bothered to refute. He had observed this Shadow Lord of Heaven before. His abilities were indeed not bad. However, from a comprehensive point of view, he was naturally inferior to that Doja. Very soon, the battle began. The Shadow Lord of Heaven's spear was indeed like a dragon. Every spear strike was accompanied by a shadow. It was as if the shadow was entangled. However, the Doja was even more domineering. The long sword in his hand flickered with a bright light. Most people couldn't see it, and it had already slashed the Shadow Lord of Heaven. Following that, he displayed an even more magnificent sword technique. It was so dazzling that they couldn't see it clearly. This speed was really too fast. They had never seen a sword technique of this level reach a level that even they couldn't see. In the blink of an eye, it was unknown how many tens of thousands of swords had been stabbed out. The Shadow Lord of Heaven was forced back again and again. Finally, under the piercing of a sword, the Shadow Lord of Heaven was sent flying. Complete defeat. A complete and utter defeat. They didn't expect that the great genius of the Spear Palace would be so easily defeated. He was beaten to the point that he couldn't even fight back. It was really as Yi Tianyun had said. Only speed could not be defeated. It was an existence that could crush others. Chapter 1092. Elder Xiao Tian's face was not swollen, but the crowd felt that his face was really swollen. Just a moment ago, he was so sure that the agent would lose. With the genius of the Spear Palace, the opponent would definitely lose. Now he was slapped in the face very hard. He did not know who was blind, but he was the one who was blind. He could not see it. Yi Tianyun had exposed the real situation. Elder Xiao Tian was so embarrassed that he wanted to die. That's great. That agent really won. That sword technique was too fast. I could barely see it. Is there such a person in our heavenly, spring, divine realm? That's right. It's the first time I've seen such a fast attack. He looks very unfamiliar. If he had such amazing sword techniques, he would be very famous. No matter what we won. 10,000 star stones. Now it's doubled to 20,000 star stones. We really earned big. All of them cheered, but most of them wanted to see Elder Xiao Tian make a fool of himself. Elder Dong Yun naturally would not let go of this chance. He smiled at Elder Xiao Tian. TSK, Elder Xiao Tian, your eyes are really good. What Spear Palace will win? Now? A dozen of us earn more than 100,000 star stones in one go. Although it's not a lot, it's entertainment. It's good to win. Elder Xiao Tian glared at them, and even more at Yi Tianyun. He did not expect to make a fool of himself. He did not know how to retort. Who asked him to be so full of himself? He could not change the situation no matter what. Hey, isn't that the new super genius of Sword Palace, Sword Rain Lord of Heaven? I didn't expect the shopkeeper to come and be a fighter. A new member? No wonder I have never seen him before. So he's the new genius of Sword Palace. Rumor has it that he's the #1 sword genius of Sword Palace in 1,000 years. The audience below immediately began to discuss, and only then did the people above know the origins of the agents. The #1 sword genius of Sword Palace in 1,000 years. Compared to Shadow Lord of Heaven, he was naturally much stronger. The shadow-like Lord of Heaven was at most ranked above average in the Spear Palace, but the Sword Rain Lord of Heaven was the #1 swordsmanship genius in 1,000 years. The abilities he displayed far surpassed the shadow-like Lord of Heaven. When Elder Shao Tian heard this, his face turned green and white. This was because he was not well-informed enough. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have said such a thing. In the end, he was blind. Little junior brother, you're really too amazing. You even saw through this. You're really our lucky star. You've just joined, and you've already made us a fortune. Yes. We all suspect that you're from the Heavenly Trigram sect. Only the Heavenly Trigram sect can deduce that. Heavenly Trigram Gate? It can't be, right? If he was from the Heavenly Trigram sect, would he join the Heavenly Spring Divine Realm? They all looked at Yi Tianyun, waiting for Yi Tianyun's answer. Heavenly Trigram Gate? I'm not from the Heavenly Trigram sect. I was just casually guessing. It's just luck. Yi Tianyun was humble. The Heavenly Trigram sect they were talking about was actually a hidden faction. It wasn't considered a God Realm faction. It was just an extremely secretive sect. It was said that even third-grade factions didn't dare to provoke them. He guessed 4 rounds correctly. No one would believe it if he said it was luck. They all laughed. They felt that this new junior brother was more and more pleasing to the eye. A human, and the Heavenly Trigram sect will accept him? That's just daydreaming. Elder Shao Tian said coldly, since you're so accurate, Elder East Cloud, why don't we go down and have a spar? Let's see if we're right. He was really angry and wanted to get back some face from Elder East Cloud. Let's have a spar? Do you think we're afraid of you? Senior Brother High Dragon and the rest had wanted to do this long ago. They kept saying that they only accepted trash. Then, let's have a spar to see who is the real trash. Elder East Cloud did not even open his mouth, and they were already fighting to have a spar. Yi Tianyun looked over. The 3 people that Elder Shao Tian brought over also had a feeling of eagerness to give it a try. The cultivation of the 3 of them were not low. They were all at the 5th level of the Lord of Heaven or above. They were considered to be relatively strong. The disciples that Elder Shao Tian invited over to drink would definitely not be simple. If they were too ordinary, it would really be a slap in the face. Elder Shao Tian, since you want to have a spar, that's no problem. How do you want to spar? Elder East Cloud naturally would not admit defeat. He felt that there was no lack of geniuses on his side. They would not be the slightest bit inferior to the other side. Of course it's to go down and have a spar. We'll send out one person, and you guys will be sent out by that kid. Don't you guys believe in his judgment? Then let him choose. How about it? Elder Shao Tian looked at Yi Tianyun. He wanted to get back some face in disguise. However, going against a junior was really not the bearing of an elder. Elder Shao Tian really did not have any bearing to speak of. No matter who the opponent was, getting back some face was the most important thing. Everyone looked at each other. They did not think that there would be such a move. Elder East Cloud did not think too much and said, no problem. Let him choose. I have no objections. Since he is my disciple, I should believe in my disciple's choice. Senior Brother High Dragon and the others also nodded. They smiled at Yi Tianyun and said, little junior brother's judgment is so accurate. I'll let you choose. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly. Elder Shao Tian really knew how to make things difficult for others. He was really small-minded. No problem. Since senior brothers believe in me, then I'll choose. Yi Tianyun looked at Elder Shao Tian and said, how does this work? 1 round to determine the winner? Of course, it's not 1 round to determine the winner. It'll be best of 3 rounds. How about it? Elder Shao Tian smiled and said, otherwise, in order to avoid being bullied by us, I'll give you guys more chances. Of course, I believe that you guys will only send Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven or Fiery Lotus Lord of Heaven. Who else can you send? Elder Shao Tian laughed out loud. At a glance, only Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven and Fiery Lotus Lord of Heaven could see. The others could only stay at the side as spectators. Oh, I don't think so. Don't worry. I don't need to send Senior Brother High Dragon or Fiery Lotus to deal with your disciple. If I send one of them, it'll be my loss. Yi Tianyun pointed at his own eyes and said, I should say that my eyesight is not good and I made a mistake. How about that? Yi Tianyun's words greatly shocked them. Although they were very unhappy with Elder Shao Tian's words, The strongest among them were Imperial Dragon and Fiery Lotus. If they did not send the two, how could they win? Ha, what a joke. You said it yourself, Elder East Cloud. Didn't you just say that he'll be in charge of the selection? Elder Shao Tian laughed so hard that he was about to cry. How could the disciple he had brought be ordinary? In his opinion, if it wasn't Imperial Dragon and Fiery Lotus, it would be impossible to deal with them. Yes, he'll be the one to choose. Elder Dong Yun was not the least bit displeased with Yi Tianyun's words. After so many rounds, he believed that Yi Tianyun was absolutely confident. Since he said it, there would be no problem. Chapter 1093. Elder Dong Yun's confidence made Yi Tianyun feel good. What he wanted was this sense of trust. If there was no trust at all, then there was no need to talk about mutual trust. Thank you for your trust, Elder Dong Yun, Yi Tianyun said gratefully. I said I trust you, and that means I trust you. I'm not the kind of person who goes back on his word, especially someone with a big mouth and arrogance. Elder Dong Yun's words had a hidden meaning, and it was obviously targeted at Elder Shao Tian. Elder Shao Tian was exasperated, and he said with a livid face, "Then I'll send out the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven." Who will you send? Just like what you said, we can't send out the Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven or the Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven. He wanted to see the other party make a fool of himself. Not sending out the Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven and the Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven was simply courting death. To him, this was no different from giving away their lives. All this while, only the two of them had some ability, and the rest were nothing special. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven, huh? Yi Tianyun looked at him and smiled. Then we'll send out Senior Brother Phoenix Feather. Senior Brother Phoenix Feather is up for this round. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven walked out with a serious expression, but in reality, he didn't have much confidence. He just didn't want to be at a disadvantage in front of Elder Shao Tian again, and he couldn't make a fool of himself. Everyone else was shocked. They didn't expect Yi Tianyun to send out the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven standard wasn't very high, and he could only be considered average. As for the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven, his standard wasn't low, and he could even be said to be on the same level as the Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven. Elder Shao Tian wouldn't bring out a weak disciple, and he could even be said to be very strong. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven, huh? The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven's eyes were filled with disdain. The opponent was a level weaker than him, so the result was even less suspense. All right, can we go down now? Elder Shao Tian couldn't wait to see the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven cripple the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven. Wait, I have something to discuss with Senior Brother Phoenix Feather. You guys can send someone down first. Yi Tianyun indicated. All right. Elder Shao Tian gestured for Heavenly Monarch Gold Jade to go down first. As he did, Elder Shao Tian sent a voice transmission. Be more ruthless and cripple him. There's no need to Tian, but cripple of Tian is... Elder Shao Tian, this disciple has the same intention. Heavenly Monarch Golden Jade smiled coldly. He already had this thought for a long time. Since it was a fight, it definitely wouldn't end so easily. If there weren't any problems, it wouldn't be interesting at all. Yi Tianyun and the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven communicated something. After a while, the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven's face was filled with doubt, and he seemed to find Yi Tianyun's words strange. I understand. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven nodded. Senior Brother Phoenix Feather, I'll leave it to you. Yi Tianyun smiled. No problem. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven was full of confidence, and he walked down the stairs. At this moment, the people below were already prepared. When the manager saw that there were people who wanted to fight, he welcomed them to go up. The next program will be the fight between the guests. Everyone can also bet. The manager immediately announced to let people bet. Little junior brother, what did you say to Phoenix Feather? They asked curiously. Cough, cough. Actually, I didn't say much. You guys will see it later. Yi Tianyun smiled faintly, but he didn't say what it was. After fiercely selling suspense, everyone continued to watch with doubt. It seemed that the difference in strength between the two of them was still quite big. Why did Yi Tianyun dare to let the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven go up? There was someone stronger than the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven here, but he didn't choose. and he just had to choose him. As for what exactly would happen, they would have to see the final result. For their own people, they didn't hesitate to bet on the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven. Everyone bet 10,000 star stones, and they didn't hesitate at all. For their own people, they would definitely strongly support them. The star stones felt like they were free, and they continued to bet. After Elder Shao Tian saw this, he sneered, "Truly a foolish person with a lot of money. Even if they believe in their own people, they wouldn't be so brainless to believe. They naturally believe that they would definitely win." It should be said that when Tianyun said that he wouldn't send out the Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven and the Fiery Lotus Lord of Heaven, they believed that they would definitely win. Very soon the battle started. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven held a golden long sword in his hand, and the golden light was quite dazzling. This was a golden sword that he had personally forged, and it was definitely compatible with his elemental power. It could erupt with the strongest power. Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven, if I attack too heavily, then don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame your little junior brother. As soon as he finished speaking, the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven had already flown over. The golden sword in his hand shone brightly, and it was as if the Buddha's light had enveloped him, and his whole body flickered with golden light. It looked as if the Buddha's light had shone, and it had enveloped this piece of land, causing all the evildoers to have nowhere to hide. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven similarly took out the flower feather long sword that he had forged, and he flew over, intending to confront the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven head-on. When everyone saw this scene, they shook their heads one after another. This was undoubtedly the most unwise choice, and it was equivalent to dragging himself into the water instead. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven's ability had always been stronger than his. If he were to confront it head-on, he would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage. Now that he was confronting it head-on, wasn't he courting death? Haha, is this what you call your eyesight? Elder Shao Tian laughed out loud, and he felt that Tianyun was very ridiculous. Was it his plan to let the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven confront him head-on? Tianyun could not be bothered with him, and the corners of his lips curled into a smile. Everything was within his control, and there was no need for him to worry about anything. At the same time, when the two of them were about to collide, the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven's attack suddenly turned downward, and it actually ignored his opponent's attack. It directly swung its sword at the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. Countless flying feathers pierced through the long sword, and it was like a dense sword rain that pierced through continuously. You think this rubbish sword rain can break through my defense? You're courting death. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven waved its long sword rapidly, and it broke through the sword rain. However, there was too much sword rain, and it was impossible for it to block all of them. Following that, a small portion of the sword rain pierced through, and then fiercely hit the body of the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. There were many parts of the body that were hit, and there was no problem at all. When one part of the sword rain hit the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven, the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven's expression changed, and the originally fierce attack suddenly disappeared. What replaced it was the disappearance of the star power, and the attack dissipated. The overbearing attack suddenly dissipated, and no one knew what had happened, including the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven. He did not know what he had done. However, the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven did not stop, and it wanted to take advantage of his weakness to take his life. It continued to display countless flying feathers, and they continuously pierced through the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. At this time, the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven covered its abdomen, which had been bleeding for some time, and it was obvious that it was a wound caused by the flying feathers. Its face was pale, and it waved its sword with one hand to block, but its momentum was weaker than before, and its star power could not be sustained. Chapter 1094. Despicable. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven covered his waist and kept waving his arms to block the feathers, but his strength was getting weaker and weaker. The wound on his abdomen was like a dam that was releasing astral power. He couldn't accumulate any energy to attack. The Phoenix Lord of Heaven kept pushing him back. He couldn't fight back at all. Theoretically, he should be able to stop the bleeding even if he was injured or ignore the wound and could still fight. However, the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven seemed to have withered. He couldn't fight back at all, and could only keep moving back. If this went on, he would lose for sure. Damn it, what's going on? When Elder Shao Tian saw his disciple being forced back again and again, he roared, "Don't care about that wound. Fight him." He didn't want to lose this round. He just wanted to win 2 out of 3 rounds. He needed to win both rounds, not lose one. What he wanted was complete perfection, not a scar. The Golden Jade Lord of Heaven was pushed back. He wanted to fight back, but he couldn't control himself, and kept moving back. Very quickly, he was sent flying by the Phoenix Feather Heaven Monarch's ferocious attacks. After he fell to the ground, he coughed up blood, especially the abdomen area, which kept bleeding. More importantly, he could feel the astral power flowing out. He had seen blood before, but he had never seen the power of a meteor. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect the Phoenix Lord of Heaven to win just like that, let alone the others. Even the Phoenix Feather Heaven Monarch herself was dumbfounded. Who would have thought that she would succeed so easily? How could he not be shocked when he defeated an opponent who was stronger than him so easily? Damn it! Elder Shao Tian cursed and quickly flew down to the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. He checked and said in shock, "His inner world is damaged. Astral power is flowing out. As a genius, he must have an inner world, and it should be quite complete." The inner world was very important. If it was broken, it would be very destructive. That was exactly what happened. His inner world was broken, and it was a mess inside. Under such circumstances, not to mention fighting, it would be good if they could hold on and not explode. "You're so ruthless. You actually broke my disciple's inner world." Elder Shao Tian was like a dog as he began to bark wildly. "Elder Shao Tian, what is the meaning of this? We all saw the fight just now. I didn't see my disciple being too heavy-handed. It was all normal attacks, and he didn't even try to kill his opponent. There's something wrong with him. He actually dared to slander my disciple." Elder East Cloud also flew down, his expression furious. Not to mention Elder East Cloud. Everyone could see this. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven didn't do anything. It was just a very normal attack. It just happened to break through the opponent's defense, and then it became like this. Such irregular attacks just happened to break through. Everything was so coincidental. This was at most an accidental injury. How could it be said that it was intentional? "Is this your doing?" Elder Shao Tian stared at Yi Tianyun. Everyone was chosen by Yi Tianyun. Other than him, who else could it be? What could I be doing? I was just up there, and then I simply sent out Senior Brother Phoenix Feather. Is there a problem? Yi Tianyun shrugged helplessly. At this time, everyone remembered that the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven was sent down by him. He really succeeded in defeating the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. Not only did he defeat, but it could be said to be a complete victory. He directly crushed the opponent. Although it wasn't a perfect victory, at least he won. The process wasn't important. What was important was the result. Elder Shao Tian gritted his teeth. He was just casually saying it. How could he slander him? Moreover, it was his own problem. He couldn't blame others. Then, Elder Shao Tian brought people down to treat their injuries. The inner world was damaged, and it needed to be quickly repaired. Otherwise, if the foundation was damaged, there would be repercussions. When the fight temporarily stopped, everyone came to watch. They were all amazed by Yi Tianyun's judgment. He really succeeded in defeating the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. This is too inconceivable. When I first chose the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven, I was worried. Now it seems that I was worried for nothing. That's right. Who would have thought it would be so easy? It was so easy. The opponent didn't even touch the surface of the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven. Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven, what did little junior brother say to you previously? The most important thing had come. Previously, Yi Tianyun had whispered something to him. They were very curious. Now, they could finally get the Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven to say it and resolve the doubts in their hearts. Little junior brother didn't say anything to me. He just told me to attack with all my strength and use whatever moves I usually use. However, I need to face him head-on. Don't be afraid. Attack him head-on. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven said helplessly. That's simple? Everyone was shocked. That's simple. The Phoenix Feather Lord of Heaven spread his hands and said, I wasn't confident at that time. Anyway, I listened to little junior brother and used my usual attacks. My attacks couldn't even withstand a single blow from the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. However, a few of my attacks still hit him. They shouldn't have caused any damage to him, but they still easily broke his defense. Little junior brother must have said that because he saw something wrong with the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. The Dragon Lord of Heaven said with a smile. Everyone looked at Tianyun, wanting to get an explanation from him. That's about right. I saw that his body was a bit strange and his astral power wasn't stable enough. Therefore, I speculated that he must have been injured during his recent cultivation. He could have easily broken his defense with just a slight attack, Tianyun explained. He had easily found the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven's biggest weakness through the appraisal eye. He didn't need to use too much power. He just needed to hit him. But why didn't you just attack the weakness? Someone immediately asked. If I said it and did things too deliberately, the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven would be on guard. As long as we guard against that weakness, we won't have a high chance of winning. Tianyun smiled. Everything was within his expectations. After hearing his explanation, everyone finally knew what was going on. It was all part of his plan. If he had told the Phoenix Lord of Heaven that he had targeted the opponent's weakness right from the start, wouldn't he be telling the opponent that he was going to attack the opponent's weakness? That's amazing. You saw it. We couldn't tell at all. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, but they were still shocked by Yi Tianyun's observation. Even Elder Xiao Tian didn't know about it, but Yi Futian noticed it. It was unbelievable. Yi Tianyun smiled. Everything would be easy as long as he knew the opponent's weakness. Therefore, there was no need to send the powerful Dragon Lord of Heaven. It would be enough to deal with him. Very soon, Elder Xiao Tian returned with a pale face. He said in a deep voice, I'll send Shan Yin, Lord of Heaven, for the next round. Who will you send? Chapter 1095. Everyone looked at Yi Tianyun, wanting to see who he would choose this time. They all looked at each other. There were so many people. Who would they choose? The opponent was the Mountain Lord of Heaven, a rock. Whether it was defense or strength, he was a relatively strong existence. With one punch, he would be easily destroyed. There were very few people present who could compare to the Mountain Lord of Heaven, unless the Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven or the Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven went up. But they couldn't send the two of them up. This was awkward. They wanted to see who Yi Tianyun would choose this time. Such a troublesome opponent. Could it be that he also had a weakness? Or did he have some other strength that could be used to attack him? Hurry up and choose. If you want to find any problems with the Mountain Lord of Heaven, then save yourself the trouble. His body is strong. There won't be any problems. Elder Xiao Tian sneered. This time, he had asked the Mountain Lord of Heaven thoroughly. He didn't want the situation with the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven to happen again. If they lost again, then they would completely lose. Now, everyone looked at each other. Was there really no other way? Didn't I choose long ago? The next one to go up will be me. Yi Tianyun walked out and looked at Elder Xiao Tian sharply. You're going up? Elder Xiao Tian was shocked. No matter how they thought, they didn't think that Yi Tianyun would go up personally. This was way beyond their expectations. How strong was Yi Tianyun? He was only a 7th-tier Earth Monarch. He could have broken through to the 8th-tier Earth Monarch, but he wasn't in a hurry. Recently, there were a lot of things to do, so he could only delay it. He didn't break through immediately. Therefore, in the eyes of others, he was at most a 7th-tier Earth Monarch. This cultivation against a 5th-stage Heaven Monarch. Wasn't this courting death? That's right. I'm going up. Is there a problem? Yi Tianyun said calmly. This doesn't seem to be against the rules, right? Of course it's not against the rules, but are you sure you want to do this? Elder Xiao Tian suspected that Yi Tianyun had gone mad. There was such a huge gap between their cultivations, yet he still chose to take the field himself. Elder Xiao Tian suspected that he had gone crazy. I'm sure I will, Yi Tianyun said calmly. All right. Elder Xiao Tian looked at Elder East Cloud and said, Elder East Cloud, I didn't do it on purpose. He chose it himself. It has nothing to do with me. Elder East Cloud and the others were all shocked. Who would have thought that Tianyin would personally go into battle? With such a huge difference in cultivation, it was easy for problems to arise. We believe in junior brother. Since this is his choice, we have nothing to say. Senior sister Huolian and the others nodded. They didn't try to persuade Tianyin not to do so. Even senior sister Huolian laughed because she remembered something. During the examination, even the flame Qilin was sent flying by him. This was enough to show that his strength was quite domineering. She didn't know how much potential Tianyin had yet to unleash, but his strength definitely wouldn't be weak. Since he could make this request, then he definitely had a chance of winning. Otherwise, why would Tianyin bring it up? Yes, I respect my disciple's choice. Elder East Cloud also said. Elder Xiao Tian was shocked. He thought that Elder Xiao Tian would try to dissuade him. Who knew that it would be so pointless and really let Tianyin take the field himself? Very well. Since you're so bold, then let me see how strong you are. Elder Xiao Tian glanced at the mountain rock Heavenly Lord and sent a voice transmission. You must beat this kid to death. Don't show any mercy. Also, you must be more vigilant. I don't know what that kid is thinking. Go all out if you can. Elder Xiao Tian, you're too nervous. This kid's cultivation is so low. At most, he has some tricks up his sleeve. In the face of absolute power, these tricks are all trash. Lord of Heaven was full of confidence in himself. His opponent was so far away from him. If he couldn't even win this, he might as well commit suicide. Since you're so confident, then I'll leave it to you. If you lose... Elder Xiao Tian's eyes were cold. He didn't even need to finish a sentence to know what he was trying to say. Lord of Heaven nodded forcefully. He knew that he couldn't lose. Elder Xiao Tian cared a lot about his face. He already looked down on Elder East Cloud. If he lost to Elder East Cloud's disciple, where would he put his face? Soon after, they all went up. When they stood on the stage, they all exploded. With such a huge disparity in cultivation, he still sent his disciple up. Wasn't he just giving away money? Ahem, I won't place a bet this time. The situation is a bit special. If the disparity is too great, then it can't be considered a bet. The shopkeeper's words disappointed many customers who wanted to place a bet. Originally, they could have just closed their eyes and placed their bets on Lord of Heaven. They didn't need to choose anything else. Who knew that he wouldn't place a bet? It was really disappointing. The shopkeeper wasn't an idiot. With such a huge disparity in cultivation, if he still placed a bet, wouldn't he suffer a huge loss? He didn't want to suffer such a loss. After all, opening a restaurant wasn't for charity. It was to earn money. It seems like the shopkeeper is taking care of you. If you bet all at once again, you'll suffer a huge loss. Elder Xiao Tian didn't forget to give them a cold shoulder. Our little junior brother won't lose. That's right. Don't think that Lord of Heaven can win. Our little junior brother is even more powerful. They all had full confidence in Tianyin. After experiencing all this, they had a deeper understanding of Tianyin. They felt that he was unfathomable and was definitely a powerful cultivator. Powerful? Are you kidding me? Elder Xiao Tian shook his head. With such a huge disparity in cultivation, what can a human do? If it were any other race, I would still think that they have a chance. But a human? While they were talking, Tianyin and Lord of Heaven had already started fighting. Lord of Heaven was barehanded. It wasn't that he didn't have a weapon, but his fists were more powerful. His body didn't seem to have any bright spots, but when he swung his huge fist down, it was like a huge mountain pressing down. I'd like to see what tricks you have up your sleeves. Lord of Heaven faced the attack head-on. At the same time, he stared at Tianyin and didn't relax at all. He wanted to see what tricks Tianyin had up his sleeves, such as sneak attacks from the side or some other tricks. Unexpectedly, Tianyin didn't move at all. When he smashed over, Tianyin swung his fist at the same time. Fist against fist. There weren't any tricks. It was a very simple and violent fist against fist. Is he an idiot? Fist against fist. I'm dying of laughter. Fighting fist against Lord of Heaven. This is his ability. Chapter 1096. Rocky Lord of Heaven and Tianyin's fists collided. In the end, Rocky Lord of Heaven was sent flying. This result was unbelievable. Rocky Lord of Heaven was from the giant rock tribe. Most importantly, his cultivation was higher than Etienne's, who knew that he would still be crushed. This was unbelievable. Rocky Lord of Heaven was sent flying. The thick rock on his arm started to crack. It was obviously shattered by Etienne's overbearing fist. On the other hand, there was nothing wrong with Etienne's fist. Apart from taking a few steps back, he was fine. It's really tough. Etienne smiled. He activated the dragon god bloodline in his body and circulated it in his body. In terms of strength, he would never lose to anyone. Rocky Lord of Heaven's cultivation was higher than his. But when had he ever been afraid of anyone? From the appraisal eye, he could see that Rocky Lord of Heaven was not as scary as he had imagined. Especially as his cultivation increased and he absorbed more astral energy from the heavenly tribulation, his physique was greatly strengthened. Even Rocky Lord of Heaven might not be a match for him. What? Rocky Lord of Heaven quickly stopped. He felt the pain on his fist. It was unbelievable. He thought that Etienne would use some tricks. But now it seemed that there was no trick at all. Etienne had fought him head-on. Most importantly, he had lost. While he was stunned, Etienne suddenly stepped on the ground and rushed towards him like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Etienne's whole body's power was at its maximum, especially his dragon god bloodline. The effects of his equipment were also activated to the maximum. If not for this, he would not have been able to fight someone of a higher cultivation. After all, his opponent's cultivation was much higher than his. If he did not have other comprehensive strengths, he would not be able to deal with him. What are you waiting for? Etienne swung his leg and lashed out fiercely. Mountain Lord of Heaven quickly raised his arm to block. Boom! The Mountain Rock Heavenly Monarch was sent retreating by the kick. The hard rock wall on the surface of his body immediately caved in, and dense cracks appeared on his arm. Even the powerful defense of the Lord of Heaven could not easily withstand the violent power. This scene shocked everyone. Most of them thought that Etienne would use some kind of trick or maneuver to trick the Lord of Heaven. Now, it seemed that they had been too naive. Etienne did not need to do that at all. He had just used his most violent strength to smash the mountain rock, the Lord of Heaven. This kid's strength is so strong. He's a human? Even Elder East Cloud and the others were shocked. Although they knew that Etienne's strength was not weak, they did not expect him to suppress the Lord of Heaven in such a dominating manner. While they were still in shock, Etienne did not give his opponent a chance to catch his breath. He continued to attack ferociously. He did not use any special moves. He simply used his fists to smash. Don't be arrogant. The Lord of Heaven was also angry. The cracks on his body began to repair rapidly. Soon, a thick rock wall was built on the surface of his body. His strength began to rise rapidly. He completely released the power of the Lord of Heaven. Heaven-shaking art? Heaven-shaking art? Etienne instantly turned into an extremely heavy body. At the same time, he used the heaven-shaking art. He increased his fighting strength by 10 times. The power of the planets in his body began to circulate wildly. His body, which did not look very big, was like a huge planet. He charged towards the Lord of Heaven. Boom! The two of them collided, and with a loud bang, the Mountain Rock Heavenly Monarch was sent flying. The thick rocks on his body were smashed into pieces. On the other hand, Etienne was completely fine. He did not even have a scratch on his body. Etienne was wearing the evil devil godly suit. His defense was so strong. Naturally, he was not afraid of the Lord of Heaven. On the surface, it looked like ordinary clothes. In reality, it was the evil devil godly suit. How could its defense be weak? However, when they collided, they still felt that the other party was quite hard. The Lord of Heaven was not a pushover. His body was also very strong. It was already shocking that he was injured by Etienne. The giant rock tribe had always had a strong defense. It was a great humiliation to be hit by a human. Mountain Rock, use your weapon. Why are you using your fists? Use your weapon. Elder Xiao Tian, who was below the stage, shouted hurriedly. The Lord of Heaven definitely had a weapon that he could use. He might even be able to use it together to explode with even greater power. However, the Lord of Heaven did not hear him. He continued to use his hard body to collide with Etienne. He wanted to see who was harder. Damn it. He actually did not listen to me. Elder Shao Tian gritted his teeth in anger. If the Lord of Heaven used a weapon, his chances of winning would undoubtedly increase greatly. He might even be able to crush Etienne. However, the Lord of Heaven did not use a weapon. He was about to explode in anger. Elder Shao Tian, it seems that you do not understand your disciple's heart. As a member of the giant rock tribe, his opponent uses their fists and bodies to hit him. These are the two techniques that he is most proud of. Do you think he will use other techniques? Elder East Cloud laughed coldly at the side. Your disciple still knows the rules and knows what to do. The giant rock tribe was most proud of their fists and bodies. Now that they were being suppressed by Etienne, how could he admit defeat? Taking out a weapon was equivalent to admitting defeat. Thus, even if he lost, he had to use the most basic techniques to fight to the end. Nonsense. The process is not important. What is important is the result. Elder Shao Tian did not care that much. He only wanted to win this match. Elder East Cloud shook his head. He could not be bothered with his disciple's thoughts. If he could not even understand his own disciple's thoughts, how could he be a master? However, the Lord of Heaven could not be bothered with him. He continued to use his most primitive abilities to continuously collide with Etienne. Etienne also did not use any weapons. He continued to use all kinds of fists to smash. The Lord of Heaven was sent flying again and again. They were both using the same techniques, but the Lord of Heaven was slightly inferior. The Lord of Heaven also used martial arts. Combined with his bloodline defense, he should be able to fight against many opponents of the same level. However, against Etienne, he was filled with a deep sense of powerlessness. He was completely crushed. Under the final punch, the Lord of Heaven was sent flying and vomited blood. When he landed heavily on the ground, he did not faint. Instead, he collapsed on the ground and laughed with tears in his eyes. He never thought that he would lose to a human, an opponent that he could never imagine. You're really tough. Etienne waved his hand and looked at the Lord of Heaven lying on the rock. He smiled faintly and said, "But thank you for being so persistent in fighting against me. We, the giant rock tribe, will not use any weapons when facing an opponent like this." The Lord of Heaven sat up and said in admiration, "You are the first human that I have met with such a tough body. I admire you." Chapter 1097. Etienne won this round in the most domineering manner. Previously, Elder Shao Tian had set the best of 3, and Etienne's side had won 2 rounds consecutively. There was no need to compete in the remaining round, and he had won it directly. Not only that, but the Lord of Heaven also admired him greatly and vaguely saw him as a friend. How was he still an enemy? He was almost becoming a friend. "Elder Shao Tian, you've lost?" Elder Dong Yun looked at Elder Shao Tian. He was so happy that he almost laughed out loud. Elder Shao Tian's expression was ugly. He never thought that he would lose to Elder Dong Yun, who was at the bottom of the Hall of Gods. He had always disapproved of Elder Dong Yun's way of doing things. He didn't reply. Instead, he walked over to the Lord of Heaven and said coldly, Mountain, what's the meaning of this? I asked you to take out your weapon just now. Why didn't you do so?" "Elder Shao Tian, our giant rock tribe has our own rules. The other party didn't use any weapons and used our greatest advantage to attack. We can't possibly break the rules." The Lord of Heaven had already crawled up. His injuries weren't very serious. Although he had vomited blood from Etienne's attack, it was only an ordinary injury and not a very serious one. A loser is a loser. What's the point of breaking the rules? You're a loser now. Get out. I won't take you in as a disciple, especially a disciple with such a rotten brain. Elder Shao Tian was completely furious. This meant that Mountain didn't listen to him, so there was no need for him to stay by his side. The Lord of Heaven's body stiffened. He slowly knelt down and said in a deep voice, "That disciple was unfilial. I'm sorry, Elder." With that, he kowtowed 3 times and completely severed all ties with Elder Xiao Tian. From now on, the two of them would have nothing to do with each other. "Humph." Elder Xiao Tian coldly snorted. He turned to look at Elder Dong Yun and said, "Seems like your new disciple isn't bad. He even knows how to make use of such dead rules. I'm really looking forward to the competition in the palace. When the time comes, I'll see what other skills they have besides strength." After saying that, he waved his hand and left with his people, as well as the defeated Golden Jade Lord of Heaven. Although the Golden Jade Lord of Heaven had lost, he still obeyed Elder Xiao Tian's words. This was the main point. Losing wasn't scary. What was scary was not listening to his instructions and losing. That was what he couldn't tolerate the most. After Elder Xiao Tian left, they all looked at the Lord of Heaven with sympathy. "Shan Yin, Lord of Heaven, why don't you join us?" Tianyin walked over and smiled. The Lord of Heaven was not a sinister person. He had always been straightforward. This could be seen from the way they talked about rules. This fellow had a one-track mind and had always abided by the clan's rules. "Join your side?" The Lord of Heaven was stunned. He was originally a disciple of the Palace of Gods. At most, he would just have to change masters. There wasn't much of a problem. Can I really join?" He hesitated for a while and finally asked. He still wanted to stay in the Palace of Gods. "There's nothing you can't do. The prerequisite is that you can pass our assessment." The Imperial Dragon of Heaven walked out and grinned. "Your character isn't bad. I admire you. However, you still have to pass the assessment. Otherwise, you won't be able to join." The others smiled and nodded. Although the Mountain Rock Heavenly Monarch was on the same side as Elder Xiao Tian, their relationship wasn't too deep, especially when he didn't listen to Elder Xiao Tian's words. This made them happy. Some people had their own bottom line. The Lord of Heaven had his own bottom line. Only a cultivator with a bottom line would be able to go further in life. Thank you." The Lord of Heaven was extremely grateful. "I will work hard to pass everyone's assessment. If I can't, I won't have the face to join you. Let's not talk about the assessment for now. Let's drink first." Elder Dong Yun was in a good mood. He had just won against Elder Xiao Tian. How could he not be happy? They returned to the private room and continued to enjoy the wine. Without Elder Xiao Tian, they instantly felt that the wine was especially fragrant and sweet. "Little junior brother, I didn't know that you knew the rules of other clans. If the Lord of Heaven used a weapon, what do you think your chances of winning are?" The Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven asked. The others looked over. Even the Lord of Heaven looked over. What if he used a weapon? Tianyin slowly put down his wine cup and smiled. "Let's drink. Let's not talk about this anymore." Seeing that Tianyin wasn't willing to answer, they could only stop asking. Some felt that he could still win, while others felt that he couldn't. Tianyin drank another cup and didn't say anything else. The result was needless to say, let alone the Lord of Heaven using a weapon. Even if he burned his essence blood to fight him, he wouldn't be the slightest bit weaker. It's about time to improve my cultivation. Things here were temporarily put on hold. The next step was to go to Heaven Pilfering Sacred Land to cultivate and improve his cultivation. Soon, things here were over. Through this banquet, their relationship improved a lot. Especially after this duel, they had gained a deeper understanding of him, and the relationship between them had undoubtedly improved by leaps and bounds. After saying that they were going to Heaven Pilfering Sacred Land, they all revealed envious gazes. The Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven and the others didn't have the chance to go to Heaven Pilfering Sacred Land. It was an extremely strict place and not so easy to go. They needed a lot of contribution points to be able to stay in Heaven Pilfering Sacred Land for a while. For example, if Tianyin wanted to cultivate, he would at most be given a month's time. It was enough to show how precious it was. According to Elder Go Huang's words, Tianyin could look for him once he was ready. If he wanted to go to Heaven Pilfering Sacred Land, he had to go through the approval of these high-level elders. Even Elder Dong Yin couldn't do it. Under the guidance of the guards, Zhang Xian soon arrived before Elder Go Huang. There wasn't any trouble this time. It was obvious that Elder Go Huang had left some instructions on the token in order to avoid any unnecessary trouble. This would undoubtedly make things much more convenient. "You're finally here. I know about your situation. You just joined the God's creation palace and already caused such a huge commotion. Elder Go Huang shook his head and laughed. Furthermore, you even joined Elder Dong Yun's camp. It seems like your character isn't bad. Elder Dong Yun's side isn't bad. In the past, Elder Dong Yun was a super genius. It's just that his personality was different and the cultivation path he took was slightly different. No matter what, he's definitely a good elder. Nothing here could be hidden from the eyes of these elders. As long as he wanted to understand, he would be able to know everything in the next second. Elder Dong Yun is naturally a good elder. Etienne smiled and said, Then, Elder Go Huang, I wonder if you can go to Heaven Pilfering's sacred land now. Chapter 1098. Elder Go Huang brought Etienne to tear through space and quickly arrived at the side of the teleportation formation. This teleportation formation was a little special. There were 2 guards guarding it. The other teleportation formations did not have any guards here, which proved that the place this teleportation formation reached was very important. Elder Go Huang. The 2 guards bowed to express their respect. Elder Go Huang nodded and brought Etienne to the teleportation formation. Then he placed his hand on the stone tablet beside him. After transferring the star power in, the teleportation formation quickly lit up and enveloped the 2 of them. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared and appeared in another area. Etienne looked around. There was nothing around him. Everything was empty. The place where the teleportation formation was located was even more peculiar. It was on top of a floating boulder and not on a planet. Without a doubt, this place was very remote. The heaven-stealing divine land was actually in such a remote place, and it seemed to be very strict. He could tell that there weren't many people who could truly touch that stone tablet. This meant that if they wanted to come here, they had to personally lead the way. Otherwise, they would not be able to come here. It was so strict that it was truly astonishing. It seemed that it would be extremely difficult to come here through other methods. If he didn't even know where he was, how would he be able to come here? Isn't this heaven-stealing divine land a little too strict? Etienne sighed from the side. The heaven-stealing divine land is the cultivation ground of our 5 divine domains, so it will definitely be stricter. There is even a strict time limit. How much time can be allocated to each divine domain is fixed. Elder Go Huang said, because there are so many cultivators, there is very little time for them to spread out. Unless it is a relatively outstanding disciple, they will not be given this reward. I can see that the other divine domains' teleportation formations are nearby. Etienne turned his head to look. The surroundings were empty, and he did not see any other teleportation formations. More or less, it's not far from here. I will bring you to the heaven-stealing divine land now. Use it well. It will be enough for you to break through to the 9th refinement Earth Lord. Only by reaching the 9th level of the Earth Monarch realm can one be considered to be standing on a high platform. Elder Go Huang was very much looking forward to Etienne breaking through to the 9th refinement Earth Monarch. Although the 8th refinement Earth Monarch was not bad, the 9th refinement was the true peak. They would only allow cultivators who could break through to the 9th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm to cultivate in such top-notch cultivation grounds. If they stopped at the 8th refinement of the Earth Monarch realm, then they would not have such a chance. Unless it was a disciple who had made great contributions, no one would be able to come in and take a look. The Imperial Dragon Lord of Heaven and the Fire Lotus Lord of Heaven were not bad, but they were not judged to have the qualifications to break through to the 9 refinements Earth Monarch. In addition, they did not have too many contribution points, so they were not allowed to come. Thinking about it, the heaven-pilfering sacred land was so big, the resources were definitely not limitless. Now that it was managed by the 5 divine domains, they had strict restrictions on the number of people they could send. Otherwise, the entire heaven-pilfering divine land would turn into a wasteland. Etienne nodded. He also wanted to break through to the 9th refinement Earth Monarch realm. After all, this was the goal of his current main mission. Immediately, Elder Go Huang brought him and directly flew forward. Under the guidance of Elder Go Huang, it could be said that it was pitch black in front of them. They could not see anything, It should be said that all the light seemed to have been sucked away, which was why they could not see any light. Tianyin could clearly feel that the surrounding star power had been sucked away. It could even be said that there was not a bit of star power in the surroundings. It was an extreme vacuum zone. The preparations are here. Elder Go Huang stretched out his hand and pointed. There was a pitch-black light in front of them, and it looked like a black ball. This could not be judged by the eyes, but by one's perception. The surrounding space was already pitch-black enough. Even if it emitted a pitch-black light, it was still pitch-black. Tianyin could feel that this pitch-black ball contained a special and strange energy. It was as if the energy that was extracted was gathered here. How did the heaven-pilfering divine ground form? Tianyin was very curious about this. No one knows. When we discovered it, it was already here. It just so happens to be sandwiched in the middle of our 5 divine realms. It belongs to a neutral training ground. Elder Go Huang took out a jade pendant and handed it to Tianyin. This jade pendant can only allow you to last in the heaven-pilfering divine ground for a month. Of course, this time point is for the outside world. The time inside often changes, so I can't say what the situation is. But there is one thing you have to remember. When this jade pendant is about to disappear, it is time for you to leave. If you don't leave, you won't be able to come out and will be completely trapped inside. His expression was serious. It did not seem like he was lying, but he was really serious. How could a training ground be so dangerous? It seemed that this jade pendant was equivalent to a protective talisman. If the protective talisman was gone, then it would be devoured and would never be able to come out. Got it? Tianyin held the jade pendant tightly. It's good that you know. 1 month later, I will come here to pick you up. Elder Go Huang reached out and patted his shoulder. He smiled, but there is no need to be so nervous. With this jade pendant, you will be very safe. As for inside, there will be super geniuses from other divine realms. Just ignore them. Tianyin nodded. After bidding farewell to Elder Go Huang, he directly drilled into the black ball and disappeared in front of Elder Go Huang. Kid, I hope you will be able to obtain a great fortune in here. Only when Earth Monarch Zhu Yin breaks through to the Lord of Heaven can he be considered the true Lord of Heaven. He shook his head, turned around, and left. 1 month later, he would come here to pick him up. When Tianyin passed through the black ball, he immediately felt the jade pendant in his bosom become scorching hot. Following that, a bit of white smoke drifted out from it. Using his spiritual sense, he could clearly feel that the jade pendant was starting to disappear bit by bit. However, this process was very slow. At the same time, the jade pendant turned into a protective shield, firmly wrapping him inside. When he entered completely, it was no longer pitch black inside. Instead, it was a strange, colorful world. It was completely different from the pitch black outside. This place looked like a fairyland. There were spirit herbs and spirit trees everywhere. On the side, there was a large pile of spirit spring water. As long as it was water, it was a spirit spring water. As long as it was a tree, it was a spirit tree of a high grade. As long as it was a grass, it was a spirit grass of a high grade. Even a piece of stone was a good forging material. It could be said that everything here was a treasure. Not a single item was a waste or an ordinary item. This scene deeply shocked him. This was the heaven-pilfering divine land? It really was a divine land. There were treasures everywhere. Chapter 1099. There were treasures everywhere. None of them were useless. This was like entering a mountain of gold and silver. The streets were filled with treasures. Anything he picked up casually was a treasure. Even the air here felt like he was inhaling an extremely dense star power that reverberated in his body. Just breathing in here was dozens of times better than outside. This meant that just breathing here for a day was equivalent to cultivating outside for a month. This difference was imaginable. If he cultivated here, wouldn't it mean that he could fly? This place is too magical, as expected of the heaven-pilfering sacred land. Everything around here must have been stolen. Tianyin was still deeply shocked. He had seen many cultivation places, but he had never seen such a heaven-defying existence. When he used the appraisal eye to scan the area, he he saw an extremely terrifying force at the bottom. There was no doubt that there was an extremely huge core inside the heaven-pilfering sacred land, and it was an extremely violent one. If it wasn't a violent core, how could it devour the surrounding world? Not to mention devouring the surrounding world. Even he himself was gradually being devoured. It was only because he was wearing the jade pendant that he could survive here. After entering, he finally understood what it meant. This place had been devouring intruders. As long as it was an external object, it would be quickly devoured and assimilated. This was the terrifying nature of the heaven-pilfering sacred land. If the jade pendant was gone, the result was obvious. It would be devoured. As for what it would become, it was not clear. Of course, without the jade pendant, he believed that it would not be devoured immediately, but would also disappear bit by bit. It should be related to cultivation. The stronger one was, the longer one could survive without the jade pendant. Just to be safe, he must have left before the jade pendant disappeared. If he was trapped here, it would not be worth it. Shortly after, Etienne landed on the ground and walked over. The feeling of his feet was no different from the outside. It could be said to be exactly the same. He reached out to pick up a stone. This was a rare flower jade stone, a material used to make high-grade reincarnation-level treasures. When he picked it up, he immediately felt a strong sense of rejection from the material, as if it was unwilling to let him touch it. It was as if it was unwilling to be touched by him. Following that, it seemed to have come to life and kept jumping in his hand, trying to break free from his grasp. There's such a feeling of rejection? Etienne felt a little strange. He immediately stuffed the jade flower stone into his storage ring to see if it would break free. To his surprise, he found that he couldn't store it in his storage ring at all. It was stuck outside, unable to enter at all. Space repulsion. This place is really strange. This heaven-pilfering divine ground doesn't allow people to bring anything out. Etienne looked at the treasures around him. No wonder there were still materials here after so long. If it could be taken away, it would definitely be taken away by a large amount. There were so many materials. Although some of them were not of high quality, they would not be a problem for Star Venerates or Earth Venerates. Especially with so many disciples in the God domain, no amount of resources would be enough. If he could, he would. Who would have thought that he couldn't even bring it with him? So many treasures could only be seen. What a pity. Take it away. Etienne's eyes flashed, and the jade flower stone in his hand disappeared as he forcibly put it into his inventory. At this moment, the jade flower stone lay obediently in his inventory, unable to leave. No matter how stubborn it was, he could still take it away. This was the wondrous use of the system's inventory. It looks like I can still take it away. I thought I couldn't. Etienne's eyes lit up. This meant that he could take away a large number of treasures. Others might not be able to take them away, but he could. The inventory in his body could be said to be endless. It could not be filled at all. He could take as much as he wanted. Immediately after, he plundered and collected everything he needed. No matter how much they struggled, it was useless. He directly collected them and cut off the connection between them. Awesome! Etienne felt very refreshed. He easily collected a large pile of treasures. However, he didn't take everything. He only took what he felt was not bad. If he took everything, it would be too crazy. After collecting a large pile, he checked the surroundings and didn't find any cultivators. It was obvious that there were very few people here. The jade flower stone was the most expensive. He could feel that this jade flower stone was very special. According to the price, it was at least a low-grade heavenly Tao treasure. To use a low-grade heavenly Tao treasure to send people in, the price was really high. Therefore, it was certain that there were very few people here. Other than the high price of sending people in, there was also the restriction. As for what the restriction was, it was not clear. It's about time to go through the tribulation. Etienne felt that he had time now. He could choose to go through the tribulation to break through to the 8th refinement, and then directly break through to the 9th refinement. Level up to the 8th refinement. Ding, experience deducted. Congratulations to player Etienne for successfully breaking through to the 8th refinement. Kaboom! Then, thick clouds formed in the sky. Although this place devoured everything, it could still form the tribulation. However, when the tribulation appeared, it started to be devoured at a speed visible to the naked eye. At this time, the tribulation started to get angry. Violent lightning started to strike from the sky, and its power increased rapidly. However, the devouring speed here was not just for show. It started to devour at a crazy speed. Of course, Onion suffered. Very soon, he had to endure the violent lightning. After he blocked it, he realized that he had already absorbed a little more than half of the lightning. The rest was completely bearable. It seems that breaking through here will be much easier than usual. Onion noticed the problem. This world could devour the tribulation, which meant that it could help to slow down the power of the tribulation. The reason why there were so few ninth refinement Earth Lords was mainly because the test of the ninth refinement was too scary. Of course, the most important thing was when the ninth refinement Earth Lord broke through to the Lord of Heaven. That was the most difficult, because the ninth refinement Earth Lord was scary enough. If one broke through to the Lord of Heaven, even the heavens would not be willing to accept it. Therefore, many 8th Refinement Earth Lords thought that breaking through to the 9th Refinement Earth Lord was a success. Little did they know that breaking through to the Lord of Heaven was the scariest. If one went through the tribulation here, it would be much easier. It might still be limited, but at least it would be greatly reduced. Chapter 1100. Boom! The heavenly tribulation became more and more intense, as if it was angered by the heaven-pilfering divine ground. However, Onion didn't wait for it to continue condensing. He directly rushed forward and wanted to destroy the heavenly tribulation with one punch. As he approached, the heavenly tribulation was completely enraged. It was fine if it was disturbed by an external force, but it didn't expect the tribulation transcendence to dare to destroy it. In an instant, the heavenly tribulation turned into several lightning dragons that swallowed it whole. Break for me! Onion's eyes flickered. Crazy damage mode exploded. He directly punched forward, and the entire heavenly tribulation was easily destroyed. Nothing could withstand his violent power, not even the heavenly tribulation. No matter how powerful the heavenly tribulation was, it couldn't be that much stronger than the tribulation transcendence. Under the crazy damage mode, it directly reached a level of crushing. Under his all-out attack, the heavenly tribulation was easily destroyed. It was no different from before. In fact, it was even a bit weaker than last time. Without a doubt, this was all thanks to the heaven-pilfering divine ground. Fortunately, the reward that should be given would still be given. The destructive power of the heavenly tribulation began to descend. It turned into star power and poured into his body, constantly nourishing his body and strengthening his meridians. This feeling of being bathed in a spring breeze made him feel very comfortable. This was the feeling he wanted. That was why he broke the heavenly tribulation time and time again to obtain the purest energy. I finally passed. After Onion woke up from meditation, the places that were originally damaged by the heavenly tribulation were quickly repaired. This kind of repair method made even him speechless. This was like an incomparably huge life that could quickly heal the wounds on his body. Next, he could rush to the 9th Refinement Earth Monarch. This process wouldn't be particularly long, especially with so many resources here. To him, breaking through to the 9th Refinement Earth Monarch wasn't a problem. It might be a problem for others, but it didn't pressure him at all. No matter how powerful the heavenly tribulation was, could it be more powerful than his crazy damage mode? He immediately flew away to see if there was anything else he could plunder. Not long after he left, a few people flew over from the side, all of them looking at this area. Damn it, he ran away. The young man frowned. That's right. How could he pass the tribulation so quickly? He clearly felt like he was going through a tribulation just now, but in just a short while, he has already passed the tribulation successfully. Another young man asked doubtfully. We can only say that we came too late. The other party just happened to pass the tribulation. Otherwise, we would definitely be able to snatch the opponent's jade pendant. That way, we would be able to stay here for a while longer. Another young man felt very regretful. There was no doubt that the three of them were in cahoots, and they wanted to rob Yun of the jade pendant. Fortunately, he had left, or else a fierce battle would have ensued. "Don't worry, that guy must still be here. Let's split up and look for him," one of them suggested. The other two nodded and quickly disappeared from the spot, splitting up to search in other places. Yin had no idea what was going on. As he flew forward, he saw quite a few natural treasures along the way. He felt that they would be useful to him, so he put them all into his inventory. After plundering along the way, a special island came into view. It was surrounded by rainbows, and it looked like a paradise island. Most importantly, there were many cultivators on the island. He thought that there would be fewer people here, but he did not expect to see more than 10 people meditating on the island. It felt like everyone was gathered here, meditating and cultivating. Without a doubt, the cultivation environment here was excellent. Otherwise, they would not have come here. They could not plunder any treasures here, so they could only look for a good place to cultivate. Otherwise, they would not have gathered here. When Yin approached, they all looked over. When they saw an unfamiliar face, they took a few more glances at him. At the same time, the token in Yun's hand flashed, which meant that there were people from the Heavenly Spring Holy Realm here. It would only flash when they met people from the same sect. When he looked up, one of them opened his eyes, stood up, and walked over. A junior from the Heavenly Spring Holy Realm? The person who walked over was a level 5 Lord of Heaven. His cultivation was quite high, and his overall level was shocking. He was definitely a genius. This place was also suitable for the Lord of Heaven's cultivation, and he could also improve by a lot. After all, the star power here was too thick. Yes, I did not expect to see Senior here. How should I address you, Senior? Yin saw that the other party was quite friendly. It seemed like he did not discriminate against cultivators of other races. "You can call me Senior, Purple Crown. What about you, Junior?" There was a purple crown on his head, and it was quite interesting to call him Senior. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven was not a human, but a phoenix. This was quite friendly. "I am Tianyun." Tianyun introduced himself. "So it is Junior Tianyun. I did not expect you to come here alone. Did no one else come with you?" The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven asked. "No. Elder Go Huang told me to come down by myself. He did not let anyone else come with me." Tianyun asked doubtfully. "Is there a problem?" "There is." The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven's face darkened, and he transmitted his voice. "If you go alone, it is very easy for you to be ambushed, and you will die. Although I do not have any proof, I feel that someone thinks so. We are not from the same holy realm, so it is better to be careful." "Is there such a thing?" The elder said that there is no problem. Tianyun frowned. He knew that this kind of thing would definitely happen, but Elder Go Huang said that there was no need to worry. "Yes, they are very secretive. I can only find some clues, but I do not know who it is." The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven said. The elder said that there is no problem, but that is based on the situation where there is someone watching. If you act alone, you will be ambushed, but you do not know who it is. This is the most troublesome thing. If they knew, they would definitely be punished. That's good. Besides Senior Apprentice Brother Purple Crown, are there any other Senior Apprentice brothers? Tianyun asked. "There are, but they are not here. I am cultivating on Divine Dream Island to deduce what will happen in the future." The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven explained. "Since you have just arrived, you should cultivate here. This place is very safe. No one will dare to attack you, especially with so many people here." Divine Dream Island? As Tianyun looked at the island, information immediately appeared with his appraisal eye. Divine Dream Island. Able to allow one to cultivate in their dreams, greatly increasing their cultivation speed. The main function is to deduce the future martial arts cultivation method, or the future road of cultivation. The success rate of deduction varies from person to person. Chapter 1101. This heaven-pilfering divine land is really amazing. There is such a thing. It is undoubtedly equivalent to a treasure. It can deduce martial arts or meditate on problems. In other words, if you encounter a bottleneck, you can cultivate here and enter a dreamland state, and then you can deduce how to break through the bottleneck. This is naturally quite amazing. No wonder this group of people meditate here. It is not necessarily a bottleneck. It could be a breakthrough in martial arts, but when you cultivate to a high level, you feel that it is difficult to break through. This divine dream island is undoubtedly a good choice, but if you want to come here to cultivate, it depends on personal contribution. Although everyone here is a genius, geniuses also have bottlenecks. For example, the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven in front of him has a bottleneck. This is not a shameful thing. If there is no bottleneck, he would have already rushed all the way. Of course, Etianyin does not have a bottleneck. The real difficulty is the problem of experience. But experience accumulates, there is no bottleneck at all. That's right, this divine dream island is extremely mysterious. You can even cultivate and perceive in your dreams. The Purple Crown Heavenly Monarch pulled Lin Ming over and smiled. There isn't much time left, so hurry up and cultivate. When the cultivation is over, we will go and meet with the other senior brothers. Etianyin nodded and sat down to cultivate. Soon, the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven entered into a state of cultivation, but he did not immediately fall asleep, but began to draw a lottery. He still has 2 lottery chances that have not been used. This time he has free time to see what he can draw. He felt that he should draw a repeat. After all, he has been drawing the same thing recently. It is really not a feeling. Of course, there is no problem with drawing a repeat. After all, this can save a lot of crazy points. It is still a good choice. Lottery! Then a huge lottery will begin to appear in the void and began to spin in front of him. He silently activated Luck Aura. The powerful Luck Aura enveloped him. He wanted to see what he can draw. Finally, the needle of this lottery will stop at the martial arts type. Martial arts? Etianyin was startled. This was the first time he had seen this type of martial arts. However, he was still looking forward to it. After that, the crystal box fell to the ground. He picked it up and opened it, and a familiar martial technique entered his eyes. The Skyquake Divine Technique. Sky Shaking Divine Art. Strengthened version, low-grade reincarnation level martial art. Able to greatly increase one's weight, shocking the heavens and earth. Enhanced version? Etianyin was delighted. The heaven-shaking divine art was still very useful, but it was already at max level. Previously, the heaven-shaking divine art was only at the heaven rank at its maximum level, which wasn't particularly high. Now that he had drawn a higher version, it meant that he could continue to level up. Under the violent gravity, what wouldn't he crush? Not bad. Although it was a repetition, he still felt very happy. After all, he liked this kind of martial arts very much. Come to think of it, the martial arts he knew were still relatively few, especially the high-level ones. The previous pile was basically trash, and the highest was only at the heaven tier. If there were no reincarnation tier martial arts or above, it would be impossible to look at it. Again, Etianyin drew again, and the huge lottery will continue to spin. Every time he got something, it would make him excited. After all, this was a brand new lottery wheel. Even if he got a repetition, he would still be able to get a higher level one. He still felt that it was not bad. Ding! The needle of the lottery will finally stopped on martial arts. It was still on martial arts. This made him laugh. He didn't expect that he would get what he wanted. The crystal box fell from above, and he held it in his hand. Looking at the crystal box, he shook his head and smiled. I hope it will give me another surprise. Shortly after, he slowly opened it, and a brand new martial art appeared in front of him. Flying Divine Art. Flying Divine Art. Low-grade reincarnation level martial art. Able to greatly increase one's speed and agility. Best matched with the sky-shaking divine art. Etianyun's eyes lit up. This flying divine art could be matched with the sky-shaking divine art. When using the sky-shaking divine art, due to the increase in weight, both speed and agility would be greatly reduced. Now that the flying divine art could greatly increase speed and agility, it was indeed an excellent match. When used together, it would be successful in battle. He didn't expect to get a good reward in 2 lottery draws, which made him feel very comfortable. Should I continue to draw? Etianyin looked at the current crazy point. There was still a lot left. Before, he was willing to use it for lottery draw, but now if he didn't draw, he wouldn't be able to get a good martial art. Killing others can get a good martial art, but it seems that it is not as good as the lottery draw. Unless he gets a more powerful heavenly path martial art, then there is still some hope. Forget it. I will use it for the time being. When I am in urgent need of it, I will draw again. Etienne didn't continue to draw. After all, a lottery draw costs tens of millions of crazy points, which is still quite painful. If he draws some ordinary points, it will be even more painful. When he wanted to cultivate, he found that there was a shocked gaze on the side. When he turned his head, the first thing he saw was not who was looking at him. He found that there are countless light spots constantly shrouding and gathering around him. Unknowingly, his body has gained hundreds of billions of EXP. What is going on? So much star power automatically gathered around him. This is amazing. This is too strange. We tried our best to absorb it, but he is actively gathering the star power. What is this situation? Does he have some kind of treasure that can attract the surrounding star power, so that he can cultivate effortlessly? All of them were stupefied, and they felt even more envy and jealousy. If they were able to obtain such a treasure, then it would undoubtedly allow their cultivations to improve greatly. Junior brother Tianyan, what is this situation? Did the elder give you some treasure? Purple Crown Lord of Heaven next to him was shocked. Etienne's whole body is shrouded in light spots. How can they not be shocked? Etienne remembered that his luck aura is not turned off. It seems that the luck aura caused the surrounding star power to gather. He was so focused on the lottery draw that he didn't pay attention to the situation around him. He didn't expect the luck aura to have the effect of guiding the surrounding star power, which shocked him. He immediately turned off the luck aura, and just when he stopped, the surrounding light spots quickly disappeared, but there are still some slowly gathering. But it is not as scary as before. You can even attract the star power if you have good luck. Chapter 1102. Etienne didn't expect that luck aura and luck value would have such an effect here, which made him feel very magical. There was no such situation in the outside world, but in Divine Dream Island, the star power would come to him on its own initiative. This undoubtedly greatly increased his cultivation speed and made it less strenuous for him. Although the star power here was very rich and he could absorb a lot with a casual breath, when he really absorbed it, it was like pulling something from the wall. Because the star power was fixed by heaven pilfering divine ground, if he wanted to absorb it, he had to spend a lot of effort. Etienne took the initiative to approach Etienne. The gap between them was huge, making the surrounding cultivators envious. They didn't know what kind of treasure he was holding to have such an effect. They didn't know what treasure he was holding. He was completely relying on his own luck value to attract them. If others didn't have such an effect, it meant that their luck value was not good. When he turned off the terrifying luck aura, the light quickly disappeared, leaving only a small amount of star power that came to him. Junior brother Tianyan, what's wrong? Don't you want to use that treasure? The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven saw the star power around Etienne gathering towards him. This is not a treasure. I absorbed it on my own initiative. Etienne shrugged helplessly. He wanted to keep using luck aura, but the consumption of luck aura was calculated by 1 second, and the consumption of crazy point was too much. Is this ability so magical? The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven enviously said, It seems that the martial arts you practice is quite special. We can't absorb so much. Immediately, he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. After all, Etienne was not a treasure. He couldn't enjoy it. He could only rely on himself. Etienne ignored the gazes around him and closed his eyes to cultivate. He wanted to see what this divine dream island could deduce for him. As he immersed himself in it, he soon felt that he had entered a strange dream. He felt that he was facing a crazy heavenly tribulation. In front of him, there were countless divine thunders covering every corner of the world, leaving him nowhere to escape. This is the heavenly tribulation that the 9 refinements Earth Lord is going to undergo. In this dream, Etienne saw an exaggerated scene. He was surrounded by divine lightning, and it was much stronger than before. It felt like they weren't even on the same level. It was more like they were going through some kind of punishment. But that was all. That was all there was to the image and nothing else. Even if he woke up and entered the dream again, the result would still be the same. Divine Dream Island wasn't able to deduce many scenes. At most, it could provide 1 or 2 scenes. It was obvious that Etianyin only had one scenario in mind, and that was to face this terrifying godly lightning. As for whether or not it was a test that the 9 refinements Earth Lord had to face, he was not very clear on this point. He only felt that the divine lightning around him was extremely terrifying. It made him feel powerless, as though he was facing a divine lord, suppressing the world. If my heavenly tribulation becomes like this, it will be too difficult. I need to improve in all aspects. Etianyin frowned. He felt that the difficulty wasn't ordinary. Even if he activated his crazy damage mode, he might not be able to withstand it. This was a reason why he was worried. If it was like usual, he could casually blow it up with a punch. It was just that his improvement was limited. After all, cultivation was the foundation of the foundation. Without a foundation of cultivation, it would be difficult to resist just by relying on defensive equipment. It shouldn't be the 9 refinements Earth Lord's heavenly tribulation. If that's the case, then no one will be able to pass it. Etianyin shook his head, denying this information. This was an attack from a divine lord. How could it be the 9 refinements Earth Lord's test? After all, he had very little information. He wasn't sure if it was the 9 refinements Earth Lord's heavenly tribulation. After feeling it several times, he finally stopped. Instead, he cultivated here. He began to absorb the star power around him, and it quickly surged over. Obtained 3 billion experience points. 1 billion experience points. 2 billion experience points. His EXP kept rising, and the EXP he gained was quite insane. Compared to the EXP he gained in the Life Shrine, it was dozens of times more. No wonder it was said that this was an excellent place to cultivate. Cultivating here for a month was equivalent to a few years outside. Of course, in reality, he didn't stay here for a month. He speculated that from the consumption, it was far more than a month. It could be at least 2 to 3 months. Elder Go Huang had said that a month was for the outside world. It was different inside, and time passed more slowly. As for how long, it depended on the consumption of the jade pendant. If it was long, it might take a year and a half to use up. If it was fast, it would take more than a month. He maintained his cultivation state here, absorbing experience crazily. This was under the condition that he didn't use the crazy experience mode. If he used it, he would be able to obtain 1 to 200 billion experience points every time. With this speed, he would definitely be able to break through and level up faster. It seems like there's no pressure to break through to the 9 refinements Earth Lord. Like this, he sat in meditation and cultivated. It was quite good to be able to break through to the 9 refinements Earth Lord level here. As time passed, he crazily absorbed the experience here. He didn't know how much time had passed, but he finally heard a clear and melodious sound. Ding! Congratulations to player Etianyin for successfully breaking through to the 9 refinements Earth Lord level. Do you want to level up now? Not for now. Etianyin wasn't in a hurry to level up. If he stayed on Divine Dream Island, how could he casually level up? No matter what, he had to leave here to level up. He immediately opened his eyes. The original scene was still reflected in his eyes. The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven was still cultivating beside him. He wasn't in a hurry to leave. I've been cultivating here for almost 2 weeks. Time really passes quickly. He took out the jade pendant. A small part of it had already been consumed. It seemed that it could last for a few more months. In just 2 weeks, he had successfully broken through to the 9 refinements Earth Lord level. The effect was truly surprising. Following that, he didn't disturb the purple-crowned Lord of Heaven. He turned around and flew out of Divine Dream Island. He planned to find a place to break through to the 9 refinements Earth Lord level and complete his task. Not long after he left, the 3 cultivators on Divine Dream Island opened their eyes at the same time. They glanced at each other and could see a hint of ruthlessness in each other's eyes. Chapter 1103. After Etianyin flew away, he quickly found a remote place to stop, and after a little look around, a strange smile appeared on his face. Level up! Then he began to attract the heavenly tribulation. He believed that the heavenly tribulation he would encounter would not be the same as the one he saw in Divine Dream Island. If that was the case, he would have to attract it. This was the only way he could greatly reduce the effects here. Ding! Congratulations to player Etion for successfully breaking through to the 9th Refinement Earth Lord Cultivation. Boom! At this time, the sky began to be covered with dark clouds. Countless bolts of divine thunder began to flash everywhere. However, it was not like in the image where there was divine thunder everywhere. There was only the terrifying divine thunder above his head. Under the interference of the heaven thief divine land, it began to be enraged. However, even if it was enraged, it did not seem to be a big problem. At most, it would be several times stronger than the 8th Refinement Earth Lord breakthrough. It was normal for it to be strengthened, but as long as it was not at the divine Lord level, Etion did not need to worry about it. When he was preparing to cross the tribulation, 3 figures suddenly appeared and surrounded him. They looked at him with sneering eyes. "Friend, we will give you 2 choices. Either you accept the strengthening effects of the divine thunder, or you throw out all your treasures. Choose for yourself." This is the 9th Refinement Earth Lord breakthrough. If he succeeds, he will really become a super genius. Thinking back, I did not dare to break through to the 9th Refinement Earth Lord. The 8th Refinement Earth Lord is already terrifying, let alone the 9th Refinement. That's right. If he dies, it will be a great loss. These 3 were the cultivators who first found the place where Etion was crossing the tribulation. Now that they saw him moving alone, they immediately chased after him. Who knew that when they saw that Etion was crossing the tribulation, they could take advantage of him? The 3 of them were Hu Hua Lord of Heaven, Hu Yu Lord of Heaven, and Hu Zeng Lord of Heaven. They were not brothers, but they had a good relationship. Their names were the same, indicating that they had a good relationship. Etion ignored their threats. He knew from the start that someone was hiding nearby. He couldn't be bothered with them. Since they were here to give away experience, he naturally wouldn't mind. All 3 of them were geniuses. Although they weren't the best, they were still pretty good. After killing them, he would gain a lot of benefits. "Throw all the treasures to you?" Etion smiled faintly. "That's right. This is your only choice. Otherwise, if we interfere a little, how much do you think the power of your heavenly tribulation will increase?" They moved closer to Etion and said in a threatening tone. This kind of threat was usually effective, especially when the higher the cultivation, the more terrifying the power of the heavenly tribulation would be. The heavenly tribulation didn't care if the other party did it on purpose or not. As long as the person got close to the heavenly tribulation would be angered and its power would increase. In its opinion, it was here to help defend, so it would increase its power. Therefore, the person undergoing the tribulation must have a protector. Otherwise, it would be extremely easy for them to be threatened. The 3 people in front of him were a very simple and crude threat. "Aren't you afraid of being punished by the heavenly spring god realm?" Etion looked at them indifferently, as if this matter had nothing to do with him. "Kid, don't you know that talking like this will easily lead to a fatal disaster?" Hu Hua, the Lord of Heaven's eyes were cold, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Etion's words were indeed asking for death. If the other party didn't have the intention to kill him, his words would completely enrage them, and they would kill him to silence him. Fatal disaster? Etion looked at them and smiled faintly. "Do you think I'm an idiot? If I really listen to you, I'll just die a little faster. You've been planning to kill me from the start. Otherwise, you'll definitely be severely punished if this matter is exposed." The choice they gave him was just to toy with Etion before he died. How could they really let him go? Once he was exposed, he would be severely punished. The 5 god realms had already set the corresponding rules. They absolutely couldn't kill each other. Once discovered, they would be jointly punished by the other god realms. However, this kind of thing could only be said verbally. If they couldn't find out anything, they could only let it go. With so many geniuses here, it was impossible to kill the wrong person. That would be too severe, and no god realm would be willing to do that. As for soul searching, it was not very possible. With their situation, they definitely wouldn't allow such a thing to happen. If something went wrong, who would compensate them? Looks like you're not stupid. Since you can see it, then there's no need to say anything more. Die. Before he finished speaking, Etienne pounced and flew directly towards them. He didn't care about the heavenly tribulation at all. After he rushed over, he scared them. They originally wanted to threaten him, but who knew that Etienne would directly kill him, ignoring the heavenly tribulation in the sky? You want the heavenly tribulation to become stronger, right? Then let's play something more exciting. Etienne quickly circulated the flying god technique. With a whoosh, his speed instantly increased. In the next moment, he killed his way to the weakest Lord of Heaven, Huyu. He grabbed him and directly flew above the heavenly tribulation. Lord of Heaven didn't even have time to react before he was already caught. As they ascended, the power of the heavenly tribulation suddenly increased, and thick divine thunder immediately struck down. Even a heaven monarch would have to retreat from such a terrifying power. Lord of Heaven wanted to struggle, but he was firmly held in place. The terrifying power made him feel how powerless his struggle was. Quickly let go of me. Lord of Heaven saw the terrifying divine lightning and was scared out of his wits. No problem. I'll let you go. Get up for me. Etienne suddenly kicked. With a dong sound, Lord of Heaven was directly kicked into the heavenly tribulation. With a boom sound, the divine lightning ruthlessly struck down and directly penetrated Huyu, Lord of Heaven's body. Heavenly Lord Huyu barely managed to block it, but his body was already charred black, and he seemed to have suffered some injuries. Following that, another strengthened divine lightning struck down from the sky and ruthlessly struck Etienne's body. However, it only left a smear of charred black on his body and then quickly disappeared. His recovery speed is quite astonishing. Lord of Heaven didn't even fall to the ground. Etienne tightly grabbed the divine spear and fiercely threw it. With a poochie sound, the spear pierced through the person in the sky. He coldly looked at them and said, "Don't you want to attract the heavenly tribulation? Come." The other two are still foolishly standing on the side. This series of actions is too fast, so fast that they didn't react. Their own brother was nailed in the air by Etienne, unable to move at all. He didn't die, but he was nailed in the air. If a few more divine lightning struck down, wouldn't he turn into charcoal? Chapter 1104. Etienne didn't give them a chance to recover. He swept the heavenly divine spear in his hand and cut Huyu, Lord of Heaven, in half. It was as easy as cutting a fragile piece of tofu. Ding! Successfully killed Huyu, Heavenly Lord. Reward: 870 billion EXP, 15 million crazy points, 5 million SPs. Reward: 10,000 killing technique, mid-grade reincarnation level martial art, broken teeth sword, high-grade reincarnation level weapon, ancient spirit necklace. Ding! Successfully killed Huyu, Lord of Heaven. Reward: 100 billion EXP, 10 million crazy points, 5 million proficiency. Reward: 1 lucky draw ticket. With the addition of 64 times experience points, he gained more than 800 billion experience points, which was really awesome. He had to admit that killing these experts was the fastest way to gain EXP, and he could also get a lot of treasures. It's just that there were no rare ones. If he could get a heavenly Dao martial art, it would be even better. Unfortunately, they didn't have this kind of heavenly Dao martial art. They did have a grade 2 divine domain heavenly Dao martial art, but they weren't qualified to practice it. Second brother. When the two of them saw heavenly monarch Huyu's corpse being dismembered, they immediately let out a blood-curdling scream. Anger immediately came out, and without hesitation, he rushed towards Etienne's side. They have always been acting together, but they didn't expect that this time their brother was killed in a blink of an eye. "I will kill you!" Huyu, Lord of Heaven, roared and rushed towards Etienne with all his strength. The phantom of Tsang-Ming immediately appeared behind him. This phantom of Tsang-Ming was actually a giant python. Poisonous gas was quickly released from his body, causing the sky to turn pitch black. Heavenly Lord Huhua did the same. He unleashed his strongest power, wanting to avenge Heavenly Lord Huyu. But as soon as they came in, the heavenly tribulation struck them. They could only brace themselves to resist. Boom! The two of them were knocked back dozens of meters, and their bodies were charred black. The power of the heavenly tribulation against them was much stronger than against Tianyin. Tianyin withstood the heavenly tribulation and flew towards them. What? You want to rob us with that little ability of yours? Tianyin sneered. The two of them were both shocked and angry. The divine lightning that triggered the heavenly tribulation was too strong. It was already good enough that they could withstand it. If it were any other ordinary Lord of Heaven, they would have been struck to death. In other words, if their cultivation was at the 5th layer of the Lord of Heaven, then the power of the divine lightning that struck down would at least be at the 6th or 7th layer of the Lord of Heaven. This was the punishment for the cultivators who had trespassed. Although it could make the heavenly tribulation stronger, it was also protecting the person undergoing the tribulation. In any case, the power of the heavenly tribulation that Tianyin endured was much stronger, but overall, it was not as abnormal as theirs. Damn it. Should we wait for him to finish his tribulation? Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, quickly retreated, not daring to continue intruding into the heavenly tribulation. That's fine. Let's let him successfully break through to the 9th layer of the Earth Monarch realm. Then we'll make plans. Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, could only brace himself and leave. After being struck by the divine lightning, they immediately sobered up, not daring to continue approaching. This was like a bucket of cold water being poured on their anger, temporarily cooling them down. No need to make plans. Just follow me to the tribulation. Tianyin laughed and pounced towards them, scaring them into running away. But how could their speed be faster than Tianyin? Phoenix Bloodline, open. Flying God Art, open. Double speed was activated consecutively, and his speed directly exploded. He turned into a ray of light and swept over, instantly catching up to Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, scaring him to the point that his courage was about to explode. What kind of speed is this? He stuttered. This speed was really too terrifying, almost catching up in the blink of an eye. Didn't I say, how about staying and crossing the tribulation together? Tianyun's eyes flashed, and he swung his fist fiercely. Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, quickly waved his snake sword to block. Tianyun completely ignored the snake sword and still punched down. Sky-shaking God Art. Violent power superimposed on his fist, like a huge planet condensing on his fist, together with two kinds of martial arts that increase speed under the situation where the power was not weakened. It still had astonishing speed. Boom! Hutsung, Lord of Heaven's hand that was holding the snake sword trembled, and his palms were directly shattered by this violent power, and he was sent flying along with his sword. Boom! A big pit was formed on the ground. Third brother! Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, was scared to death. He didn't expect that both of his brothers would be defeated. What the hell are you screaming for? Tianyun sneered. It's too late to escape. In the next moment, he rushed forward with sky-shaking God Art, and in a flash, he arrived in front of Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, and slammed his body into Hutsung, Lord of Heaven. There was no fancy move, just a simple collision. Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, directly collided with Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, and the violent power couldn't be stopped at all. The upgraded sky-shaking God Art is too terrifying. Coupled with flying God Art, it is like a huge flying planet. Who would dare to stop it? Ding successfully killed Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, gained 930 billion EXP, 20 million crazy points, 5 million SBS. At the same time, gained Meridian Snake Sword, high-grade reincarnation level weapon, 10,000 kill extinction, ancient spirit bracelet, low-grade reincarnation level. Ding successfully killed Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, gained 100 billion EXP, 10 million crazy points, 5 million proficiency, and a lottery ticket. A series of sounds popped up, letting him gain a lot of experience, but he is still far away from leveling up. I'm really sorry. I didn't expect it to be so powerful. It exploded with just one hit. Tianyun spread his hands helplessly. He thought that at most he would be seriously injured. Who knew that he would turn into a blood mist with just one hit? The sky-shaking God Art's power is certainly enhanced, plus their physique is not as strong as Tianyun. Immediately, he turned his gaze to Hutsung, Lord of Heaven. Hutsung, Lord of Heaven, was lucky. He used the Meridian Snake Sword to resist his attack, Otherwise, he would really be blown into a blood mist by the punch. Of course, the situation is not much better now. The meridian snake sword seems to be embedded in his body. He looks like he is dying. The violent fist directly punched the weapon into his body, almost piercing through it. How could he not be on the verge of death? Boom! Then, a bolt of divine lightning struck down and ruthlessly struck him to death. Ding! Successfully killed Hu Tsung, Lord of Heaven. Gained. Ding! Successfully completed a realm-jumping kill. Gained. Chapter 1105. The three lords of heaven had been easily killed by Etienne, as if he were drinking water. They were all geniuses, but how could they be his match when Etienne's strength had increased so much? They were all geniuses, but not every genius had a terrifying awakening ability, like Sir God Yuqin. Thus, dealing with them wasn't difficult at all. In particular, when combined with the heaven-shaking divine art and heaven-soaring divine art, the strength of these two divine arts directly exploded. This was a nearly overwhelming victory, directly crushing the opponent's strength. It could even be said that this was the might of a 9 refined Earth Lord. After breaking through to the 9 refined Earth Lord realm, his strength had increased by a great deal. It could be said that his strength was several times that of an 8 refined Earth Lord. This was truly in existence on a different level. No wonder it was said that a 9 refined Earth Lord was a true Earth Lord. I'll break this heavenly tribulation first. Etienne looked up at the heavenly tribulation and quickly flew up. He revolved the soaring heavenly god art and combined it with the heaven-shaking divine art to scatter the heavenly tribulation. After breaking this heavenly tribulation, a rich star power began to descend from the heavens, blessing his body and strengthening the planet within him. He sat there meditating to recover, feeling the astonishing energy. This is the feeling of a 9 refined Earth Lord. It's really good. Etienne felt his entire body relax. As he was about to finish, he heard a loud shout from the side. You actually killed our 3 senior apprentice brothers." Then, 2 cultivators flew over. As they saw the blood and corpses strewn all over the ground, they were immediately enraged. From this familiar aura, they were undoubtedly their fellow apprentice brothers. Soon after, other cultivators flew over. The fluctuations of tribulation here had clearly been sensed by the cultivators of Divine Dream Island. Thus they all flew over. Even the purple-crowned Lord of Heaven flew over. As he saw the situation, his complexion changed. "Junior apprentice brother Tianyun, you are too reckless. Even if we really want to do it, we can't do it here. We have to do it in a remote place." The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven shook his head and smiled bitterly. If he was discovered, Etienne would be punished. Etienne was from the same sect as him, so he would definitely side with his own people. As for the cultivators from the other god territories, how they died had nothing to do with him. The other cultivators flew over. When they saw this scene, they all revealed gloating expressions. They were all witnesses to this scene. "I did kill 3 of you." "That's right." Etienne stood up and readily agreed. At the same time, he retrieved the spoils of war from the corpses. Among them was the jade pendant. With the 3 jade pendants, he could stay here for a longer period of time. When the time came, he would have someone send him a message. Then, Elder Go Huang wouldn't stay outside for too long. As the other cultivators heard Etienne's straightforward reply, they couldn't help but be stunned. Then, they angrily cursed, "Put down your things. It seems you're here to rob us. How could your heavenly spring divine realm have such a disciple? Do you want to destroy the relationship between the god territories?" Once this accusation was placed on them, no one would be able to bear it. Etienne faintly looked at him and coldly sneered. "Destroy the relationship between the god territories? Then let's see who broke the rules first." As he finished speaking, he threw out a recording disc. Then, the previous conversation fell into the eyes of many cultivators. "I'll give you 2 choices. Either hand over all your treasures, or we approach and increase the power of this heavenly tribulation. You obviously want to kill me to silence me." Don't take me for a fool. All sorts of images and sounds appeared in front of everyone. Tianyun wasn't a fool. He knew how serious the situation was. From the beginning, he had used the recording disc to record everything. As long as he could prove that the other party had threatened him first, everything would be fine. As soon as the recording was shown, the purple-crowned Lord of Heaven rushed over and angrily cursed. "All right, you're the ones who really destroyed the relationship between the god territories. I didn't expect you to threaten my junior brother to pass the heavenly tribulation. If my junior brother wasn't stronger, he would have been struck to death by the heavenly tribulation." The sudden reversal made the other parties speechless. They were suppressed by the recording disc and had no power to refute. When the others saw this, they shook their heads. They didn't expect that Tianyun would still have a trick up his sleeve. This time, the one who would be punished was not Tianyun, but the other party. "Not bad. To pass the heavenly tribulation, you really spent a lot of effort. I'll explain it to Elder Go Huang. When the time comes, I'll hold your god territory accountable," Tianyun said coldly. He didn't believe that these people didn't know that the Lord of Heaven and the others had done this. They must have known about it. Now that they failed, they became angry out of shame. Now that he had the recording disc, he didn't need to explain too much. The recording was the simplest and crudest explanation. This is all because they acted without permission and violated the rules. This has nothing to do with our god territory. We'll mention this matter to the elder. When the time comes, we'll properly discuss this matter. The other party's tone immediately weakened. Anger flashed in the depths of his eyes. He didn't expect that everything would be in vain, and he would die in vain. "All right, when the time comes, I hope you can give a reasonable explanation," Tianyun snorted coldly. Then he flew to the side of the purple-crowned Lord of Heaven and said with a smile, "Senior brother purple-crowned, let's go." The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven nodded and left with his people, leaving the group of people looking at each other in dismay. This was really bitterness that couldn't be expressed. Instead, it caused a lot of trouble. The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven gave a thumbs up and praised, "Junior brother Tianyun, you're really amazing. You even know to use the recording disc. Otherwise, it would really be impossible to wash away. This definitely has to be recorded. Otherwise, it would really be a big problem. With such a big commotion, if the other party were to accuse me, I really wouldn't be able to bear it." Tianyun smiled. He already knew how to do this. No matter what he said, it couldn't compare to the recording disc. Although the recording could be faked, there were no conditions to fake it here. Therefore, it wouldn't be considered fake. Right? I almost forgot to congratulate junior brother Tianyun. You've broken through to the 9 refinements Earth Monarch level. That's really amazing. The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven shook his head and said, "At most, I'll break through to the 8 refinements Earth Monarch level. Then, I'll break through to the Lord of Heaven. Otherwise, I'll definitely fail. This way, you'll become one of the few disciples in the heavenly spring divine realm who broke through to the 9 refinements Earth Monarch level." How many people in the heavenly spring divine realm have broken through to the 9 refinements Earth Monarch level? Tianyun asked. "There won't be more than 10. You can imagine how heaven-defying you are, right?" The purple-crowned Lord of Heaven said enviously, "In the future, you'll definitely be heavily nurtured. However, I have to remind you that you must become strong enough. Otherwise, when you break through to the Lord of Heaven level, you might die here." Chapter 1106. 8 Refinement Earth Lord breaking through to Lord of Heaven would be like dying, let alone 9 Refinement Earth Lord breaking through to Lord of Heaven. The further one breaks through, the more difficult it is to break through. It's not that purple-crowned Lord of Heaven doesn't have the confidence to break through to 9 Refinement Earth Lord, but he doesn't have the confidence to break through to Lord of Heaven. Without the confidence to break through to Lord of Heaven, everything is nonsense. I know this. I must improve myself to break through. Tianyun thought of the scene in Divine Dream Island. Is he really facing the heavenly tribulation to break through to Lord of Heaven? If that's the case, he really needs to improve himself, otherwise he will die. But breaking through to Lord of Heaven, he will have to face an attack comparable to Divine Monarch level. Isn't this a bit too much? At that time, he can only resist. He can't be as domineering as he is now. He can't destroy the heavenly tribulation with one punch. It's already good enough to resist the attack of Divine Monarch level. How can he destroy it with one punch? If he provokes the heavenly tribulation, it will release a stronger attack of Divine Monarch level. It will be absolutely fatal. Ding! Completed main quest breakthrough to 9 Refinement Earth Lord. Obtained 500 million crazy points, 500 million SPs, 500 million mastery. Ding! Successfully accepted main quest breakthrough to 10 Refinement Earth Lord or Lord of Heaven level. Breakthrough to 10 Refinement Earth Lord. Obtained 1 billion crazy points, 1 billion SPs, 1 billion mastery. At the same time, obtained the title Eternal First Earth Monarch. Broke through to Heavenly Monarch realm. Gained 500 million crazy points, 500 million SBS, 500 million mastery. Choose one of the 2 main quests. You can choose to break through at will. What? When Onion saw the new main quest, he was dumbfounded. It's not that there are 2 main quests, but a new word appeared. 10 Refinement Earth Lord. 10 Refinement Earth Lord. Isn't it only 9 refinement? How did a 10th refinement appear out of nowhere? He was extremely shocked. Junior brother Onion, what's wrong? When the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven saw Onion suddenly shout out, he felt somewhat baffled. Senior brother Purple Crown? I wonder if there's a saying about the 10 refinements of Earth Monarch? Onion calmed down, looked at him, and asked, 10 refinement Earth Monarch? The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven immediately laughed and denied, I've never heard of such a saying. 9 refinements is the limit. There's no such thing as 10 refinements. Do you think that the other levels all have 10 levels, and that all Earth Monarchs have 10 refinements? That's right. Onion nodded. There's no such thing. The 9th refinement is the limit. I've never heard of the 10th refinement. If there really is a 10 refinements Earth Monarch, wouldn't it explode the heavens? The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven smiled and said, it's fine. I thought about it a long time ago, but later I realized that there was no such theory. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven denied it without hesitation, believing that there was no 10 refinements Earth Monarch. Of course, Onion wouldn't say that there was really a 10 refinements Earth Monarch. The system wouldn't lie. Since it gave this condition, then it definitely existed. There was absolutely no way it could be fake. 10 refinements Earth Monarch. Onion's eyes flickered. If he succeeded, then he would obtain an additional special title. Number 1 Earth Monarch of all time. The effect of this title was absolutely powerful. He didn't know what additional effects it would have, but he would only know after he obtained it. However, would there be any special conditions needed to break through to the 10 refinements Earth Monarch? When he checked, there were indeed special conditions superimposed on it. 10 refinements Earth Monarch. The basic condition for breaking through is to condense a second planet in the body and circulate it. At the same time, the 2 of them need to share star power and reach a mutually supportive state. Otherwise, it will be judged as a failure. Note, requires a planet with a core. When he saw this condition, he frowned. Still need to condense a planet? This difficulty wasn't just a little high, especially when there were 2 planets. It was easy to cause problems. The most important thing was that there needed to be a core. It wasn't just a simple stone, but a planet with a core. Either he condensed his own core, or he dug it up and put it in. It had to be said that the difficulty was quite high. The main thing was whether or not he could condense a second planet with a core. Furthermore, they couldn't collide with each other. Otherwise, even he would die. The difficulty is really high. Onion shook his head. No wonder no one had succeeded in so many years. The conditions were so harsh. How could anyone succeed? Otherwise, there wouldn't be this strange title of number 1 Earth Monarch of all time. What a domineering title. This was the first person to reach the 10 refinements Earth Monarch level since time immemorial. It seemed that it really was like the other levels. There were still 10 levels, but it was too difficult, so people didn't think there was a 10 refinements. Or perhaps it was impossible, so no one succeeded. As time passed and no one succeeded, they would naturally deny the 10 refinements Earth Monarch level. Although the difficulty is high, if there isn't any difficulty, then how can it be challenging? Etionyan roughly knew what the Divine Dream Island was and what he dreamt of. It might be the heavenly tribulation of a 10 refinements Earth Monarch, or the heavenly tribulation that a 10 refinements Earth Monarch would encounter when breaking through to the level of the Lord of Heaven. This might even be a hint given by Divine Dream Island. A 10 refinements Earth Monarch, the number 1 Earth Monarch of all time, would the heavens allow him to break through to the Lord of Heaven? Thus, the most terrifying divine thunder would descend. Whether or not one could resist it all depended on one's own ability. Then, he flew forwards with the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven didn't bring him back to Divine Dream Island, but directly brought him forwards. Let's meet up with the other disciples. That place is the best place to cultivate in the Heaven Thief Godland. You have just made a successful breakthrough, so you must go there to consolidate your foundations. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven enviously said, "You also obtained 3 jade pendants. You can stay here for a while longer." Senior Apprentice Brother Purple Crown, how much time do you have left? Etionyan asked. It won't be long. At most I will have less than 10 days before I leave this place. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven smiled. How about this? I'll give you this jade pendant. Etionyan selected one and handed it to the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven. If he obtained 3 jade pendants, he would be able to stay here for a longer period of time. The truth was that he didn't need to stay here for that long. Moreover, he felt that the Purple Crown Lord of Heaven was a good person. If he was given the least amount of time, it would be fine. The Purple Crown Lord of Heaven quickly declined. Junior Apprentice Brother Tianyun, you absolutely cannot do that. You have just broken through to the 9 refinements Earth Monarch realm, so you need to consolidate your cultivation. Let me tell you clearly, when a 9 refinements Earth Monarch breaks through to the Lord of Heaven, there is only a slim chance of survival. Don't think that you are enough. The truth is that nothing is enough. His eyes were filled with determination. He was determined not to take the jade pendant that Etionyan gave him. Instead, he was extremely concerned about him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.